Good afternoon and welcome to Midnight's Edge. I'm Tom Connors. With us today, as always, is Andre. How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Thanks for having me. I guess.
I was going to say,
Pleasure to be back
don't
again.
thank me. You're here. It's your channel. So,
Yeah. But I'm not the only one here, so let's do the rounds.
No, of course not. Off to a great start already. Rob is with us. He's not feeling the greatest, so do excuse his voice at this time.
Yes.
Poor guy.
Oh well, I'll survive. I hope.
I hope so too.
If not, Tom, you get my guitar. So
sweet.
I didn't say which one. I didn't say which one, mind you.
Damn it. All right, and with us also below me, as you can see, is the Script Doctor, PhD. Say hello to the folks out there.
Hello, folks. Thank you so much for inviting me tonight.
For those who hang out with us on Midnight's Edge After Dark will probably know Bill, and we also had him on recently too, did we not, on one of our last streams on here?
We did. He was on very recently, and that was very entertaining, and many good revelations from within the industry that you're actually working in, and maybe we'll get some revelations here tonight as well. We shall see. So that's going to be interesting. Also interesting is that just a couple of days ago, we had the first episode of Star Trek Picard, the series we've all been waiting for. But what did we feel about it? Let's begin with that. What are your feelings on Star Trek in general, and how excited were you for Picard? Script Doctor, let's begin with you.
Oh, okay. On the spot, great. So I grew up with Star Trek through my father. Back in '86 is when I first saw it, and I was like 2 years old. Just to give you context of my age. And I saw the original series with Kirk, Spock, and Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. And then it wasn't a few months later is when The Next Generation aired, and that kind of blew me away as well, because I thought this was all, I'm a kid. I think it's all really happening. I think it's all whatever. But it was so cool because my first foray into science fiction was that in the future, it's hopeful. Humanity's awesome. We've got our stuff acted together. We're having fun adventures throughout the galaxy. It's great. And it's always held a really deep connection with me and my father, because my father was big into science fiction and he wanted to be an astronaut, and certain issues occurred in his past that prevented him from doing that, just circumstances wise. But it was something we bonded over. So growing up watching the original series, the movies, Next Generation with their movies, excluding Generations for obvious reasons, has always been something great about me. And then finding the fan community and loving the fans, and when I started writing, the first thing I said was like, I want to be able to work on a Star Trek show one day. Number one, it's a great universe. Number two, the fans are the best of any franchise I've ever known. When Star Trek Picard was announced, I was caught in a little bit of a bind emotionally. One, seeing Patrick Stewart return to the role is exciting, but seeing those who are shepherding the franchise now gave me reservations. And I'm going to stop it there because I don't want to ramble too long.
Well, thanks for your story. Tom, your story with Star Trek.
Well, I'll keep mine short since most people who've heard me tell it before already kind of know where I sit when it comes to Star Trek. But I was introduced to it early on. My first real introduction was the fourth film, Star Trek IV, Voyage Home, of course. From there, I remember when Star Trek Next Generation came on TV, I'd seen a few scattered episodes and at least a movie or two to that point, but I never was really into Star Trek. Unlike, I'm kind of the opposite of Andre. I was always really into Star Wars, and Star Trek was just kind of like that other thing. And then eventually, as I got older, I started to understand and respect, I guess. I don't know about, well, not respect. I don't know if that's quite the word I'm looking for, but
Appreciate, probably.
Appreciate. Thank you, Rob. That's why he's there. Appreciate Rob a little bit. Appreciate Rob. I always appreciate Rob. Appreciate Star Trek a little bit more.
You better appreciate more.
I always appreciate you. Anyway, so as I was saying, I always was a little bit more into Star Wars and Star Trek, but then I got to appreciate it more as I moved on and got older, and then I got into all the series a little bit more hardcore, and I saw the TNG films in theaters. Pretty much seen every film in theaters up until I think Beyond. I don't think I went to see Beyond in theaters. So yeah, other than that, I was a pretty big fan. I didn't mind Star Trek '09. I had a lot of the same problems most people did with, Star Trek 2, and didn't think Beyond was that bad. But by that point, it was kind of done and over with. And then there was this thing called Discovery. And famously, we never talked about that.
Yeah, never. Never ever. Rob has certainly never seen it. Speaking of which, Rob, your feelings on Star Trek. How did you get into it?
right.
What does it mean to you, and what did you feel about Picard?
All right,
Or rather,
well,
how excited were you for Picard?
all right. Well, just very quickly, I go way back to the early to mid 1970s with Star Trek. I have an older brother that used to watch it. Used to rerun every Saturday afternoon in the New York area on WPIX channel 11 around 2:00. It was always a staple growing up. It was always there. And Star Trek was the first kind of real introduction to science fiction for me. There was also Space 1999. Then Star Wars came later. Always been there. Star Trek. Always loved Star Trek. Love the characters. Love the message. Love everything about it. Love the storytelling. Seen all the movies. And wasn't so much looking forward to Picard as I was just curious to see what was going to come next. Because as we said, we're all I'd never seen Star Trek Discovery. I have no idea of how good Star Trek is until in the 21st century. Waka waka, if you believe that one. But yeah, I'm just wondering okay, is Star Trek ready to turn a corner? And is Picard going to be the series to do it? That's where I was coming from. Andre?
We shall. Yeah. Well, we'll find out. As for me, I have. I love Star Trek. Unlike Star Wars, which I appreciate intellectually, but I have zero emotional attachment to, Star Trek actually means something to me. Although it was a long way there. The first time I ever saw Star Trek, I didn't know it was Star Trek. This was like way back in the 80s when we had Sky Channel on satellite from England. And there was loads of different things I'd never ever seen before. And one of them was Star Trek, which I'd only remember bits and pieces of. I didn't really care for it then. I didn't know it was Star Trek. It didn't mean anything to me other than some weird, really colorful stuff. And then later on Swedish TV, back in the early 90s, they showed the original movies, like the TOS era. And the first one I saw was the end of Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, which seemed like cool. And then the next week, they showed Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home, which I also then saw on Swedish TV. And I loved it. That was amazing. And then not too long after that, Star Trek aired for the first time on Norwegian TV. And it wasn't the original series, it was the Next Generation. By then it was already cancelled or had already seen the end of its run in the States. But that's when we got it. So that's when I got into it, by way of the Next Generation. But I gradually came to really, really enjoy it and become invested into it over the years. Funny thing is that I always kind of wanted to see the original series, but there was no way to see it. Never aired in my country, ever. time I saw the original series was again on Swedish TV back in like 2003 or something. They had like this special where over the course of one night they showed like 10 best episodes or something. That was the first time I saw the original series. But I can come to love everything Star Trek, and I've seen everything since. And I was super excited for Star Trek Discovery before we learned what went down with that. And I would have been very, very excited for Picard had it not been for the involvement of Alex Kurtzman and all the people that's behind Star Trek Discovery as well. I've always maintained that even within the confines of the alternate license, where everything has to be 25% different, even within that, you can still do Star Trek right if you have the will and the writing skill for it. And I think this first episode proves that. But we'll get to that momentarily, because now obviously we've all seen the first episode, so that's where we're coming from. I want to like Picard, but I fear that I won't like it. Let's begin with what did we like? Script Doctor, tell us, what did you actually like about Picard? To give it some praise first.
I really enjoyed the music. I thought the music was quite lovely. I like seeing Patrick Stewart again. I think the acting was rather good considering what these actors had to say. I think I'm running out of ideas there. Editing was a little, yeah, that's about it. I like the music, and the performances were quite good given what it was in their mouths that they had to spat out. That's, yeah, I wish I had more to say on that. I'm sorry.
Tom, what did you like about the first episode of Picard?
Boy. Well, I mean, I guess I should be prefaced by saying that I didn't, know the leaks going in. I know some people feel like that will affect your liking of a film, though I don't really think so, or a show, for that matter. I felt like it was good when it was Picard being Picard, which was very rare. It was nice seeing some of the old cast members again, I guess. The music was good. Yeah, it was nice to hear some of the old themes kind of creep in there. Again, like Script Doctor, I'm very impressed to really kind of, and I'm not saying I hate the thing either, so don't prejudge saying that I'm like,
oh, same as well, yeah.
Yeah, so before you jump to that conclusion, take that note and just say gosh, what else did I really like? I don't know. That's about it, I guess.
Rob, tell us something nice about Picard before we move further.
I like the dog.
Oh yeah, the puppy.
Oh yeah, the dog.
Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? Good boy. Yeah, it's always good to see Patrick Stewart in any context. Unfortunately, well, we'll get to the unfortunately later, but I do like the setting of Chateau Picard. Like in any other it's kind of nice, kind of vineyard. I kind of like that. I like. I do kind of like the girl. When she's actually portraying what she believes to be an ordinary human. I kind of like her. Of running out of things here. Yeah, it's difficult to come. It's difficult. Some of the effect shots were nice, but they were kind of getting overdone. And I don't know. Some of the outdoor sets were actually pretty cool. Like I said, I know there's going to be a lot more to say once we get into the things we dislike. I know that, but I'm trying to be as generous as possible here. I did kind of like the two Romulan house. What I don't know, what are they? The manservant and I kind of like them. I don't know who plays them, but Romulan number one, Romulan actor number one, and not Troy. I guess her name is. I don't know. Okay, and that's about it. Andre?
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, that was something quite nice. Something else nice, the critical drinker is in the chat, which is always nice to see. So if you have a few minutes and you want to join us, you're most welcome to. So, Tom, if you can sort out the link.
Yeah, I just told him to get a hold of me on Twitter if you'd like to join us, or Ken.
Yeah. As for me, something nice about Picard. Well, first I have a question to the rest of you. There was music. I didn't notice. But yeah, no, the nicest thing is I think it was great seeing Patrick Stewart.
Well, one thing about music is if you didn't notice the music, then that means it wasn't at least bad. Coming from a somewhat musician. Coming from a somewhat musician, that's, yeah.
I'll give it that. That's why I put it in the positive thing. There was music, then at least it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
No, it was great seeing Patrick Stewart again. I thought the whole thing was visually very, very nice. I was surprised at how good Data looked within the context of the series. And there are some good things there. So now let's move on to what we overall thought. Overall impression of the first episode before we start diving into the specifics. So now good and bad. Like 20 seconds. Your overall feelings. Script Doctor.
It could get better. That's all I can really say is, I mean, I want to be positive about a Star Trek show, but given the history, but yeah, I guess it could be better. It could. I hope it gets better. That's my react. I hope it gets better.
What do they say about hope, Rob?
Hope is not a strategy.
It is definitely not. No. But it's already been shot and it's in the can, so all we have as an audience is
right.
Yeah. Okay. Tom, overall impressions.
If the leaks are true, we're fucked. That's all I'm going to say on that.
Yeah,
right
that's
now.
a nice way of summing it up. Rob, anything to add to that?
Well, knowing that it's Kurtzman Trek, that I'm just waiting for the moment where it all falls apart, where the wheels come off and the whole thing just sort of collapses in on itself.
In other words, you're waiting for episode 4 because that's where that happens.
Pretty much, yeah. Or it could surprise us. Yeah, it could surprise us and not arrive till episode 5. You never know. I mean, anything is possible in this crazy world. But overall impressions is that this is a nice start to a show that would be pretty good if it were anything else except Star Trek, and anything else except, because we've seen all of these things before in out of Kurtzman Trek, and you just know where that path leads. That's the thing. You know, you see the light at the end of the tunnel, and it's a train. I mean, that's the only thing. No matter how many times you go down, you walk down that tunnel, that you're going to get hit by the same locomotive.
I thought you were going to say train wreck for a second there, but
yeah. Well, I guess train wreck. Okay, there I said it.
Just saying.
Andre.
Yeah, as for me, I thought that the first episode was perfectly serviceable. It was perfectly okay. And that means it wasn't anywhere near good enough, because this is supposed to be the return of Patrick Stewart to his signature role. The writing needed to be razor sharp. It needed to be witty. It needed to be clever. It needed to be thoroughly engaging. It needed to be as engaging as Chernobyl. By the end of the first episode, it can be like, yeah, that was okay, I guess. It needs to be, oh my God, when's the next episode coming? And some series can do that. The Orville can do that. But this hasn't. That's, I think, is the biggest problem with this first episode. Wasn't as engaging as it needed to be.
It was very passive. It was a passive episode.
I don't know if this is the right term that applies. It was very boilerplate. I mean, it really didn't do anything quite out of the ordinary. It didn't really wow you. It was all very kind of standard fare. Would you agree? Would that be the proper term, script doctor?
You can definitely use that. I mean, a boilerplate would suggest that eventually things are going to get hot and explode, but really you want that term to affect within the first 5 minutes of your movie or show.
No, because what's happening here is more of a slow burn, isn't it?
A slow burn without a fire.
yeah, and from what I understand, it's going to continue to be a slow burn for the next 2 episodes, so the first 3 episodes, and then by episode 4, and this is what I mean, that this is apparently where things go off the rails. The really, really bad preview screenings, everything, that's episode 4 onwards. From what I gather, so do take with a grain of salt and yada, yada, yada. But yeah, I hope the best for the series. I really do. But I think that they've kind of like lost their way a little bit between the activism and just sloppy writing. And what bothers me with this is that you have like Kurtzman, you have his fingerprints here the whole time, that the real enemy is within. There's no external enemy, it's just inside of us. And you had like so many hints of that here. Just wait till you see Section 31 being behind the androids in Mars or something like that. Again, just like with Star Trek Into Darkness. And we were just joined by a very special guest who is one of my favorite YouTubers. Welcome, Critical Drinker.
Hello, everyone. How's it going this evening?
Good. Thank you.
Much better now that you're here.
Yeah, much better now that you're here.
Try and bring some booze into the equation.
Thank you. And I'm not even a drinker.
I could use some.
Yeah, I literally just got finished watching Picard about 20 minutes ago, so I'm kind of fresh off it tonight. I don't know how far you guys have got into the chat about it yet, so I'm not sure where.
I don't think we've quite cracked into spoilers yet either.
No, we're trying to be polite with the positives.
Yeah, that won't take long, I don't think.
We'll get there, but yeah.
No, basically, we've just established where do we all stand on Star Trek, what we liked. Now we started getting into the generals. So we got you came in at the perfect time. Now, since you just saw us, your raw, unfiltered reaction on the first episode. Share your feelings.
It's weird. I get this weird mixture of like the new Trek movies crossed with a little bit of Next Generation, and I seem to get an Undiscovered Country vibe from as well. Like, I don't know if it's just the setup of like the fall of the Romulan Empire and like this idea that there's some kind of conspiracy behind the attack on Mars and trying to turn the Federation into this kind of isolationist state or whatever you might want to call it. It feels like a bunch of different concepts all melded together, and I don't know how well they all sit. That's my issue with it. It feels like an uncomfortable blend of lots of different ideas.
What is it with them in the isolation is... Oh, sorry, go ahead, Andre.
Yeah, no, it's just like, mix of many ideas. And as always, many of those ideas have been done before and better other places, like the places they swiped them from.
Yeah, and I was going to say, what is it with them in the isolationism?
Well, it's a
same thing in Discovery. And,
it's current year politics, and I'm not going to get into that, but I mean, that's where that stems from.
Yeah.
I get that, but it was kind of rhetorical. But yeah, sorry.
I do that sort of idea. I think worked better in the context of Discovery because it was set, obviously further back in the past when things were more dangerous. But to do this again, it's weird.
Well, it's been explored before in Star Trek, in the TNG episode First Contact, and it's like in Undiscovered Country. The TNG First Contact, where Riker is trying to initiate first contact with the pre-warp society, and there is a bit of a zealot who doesn't want their planet to be polluted by contaminated by external influences. The big problem is if you're going to explore isolationism, there's a way to do it. These guys aren't capable of doing it at all, not let alone well or even decently.
Yeah. And I think the fact that, the Federation is meant to be this big, like, multicultural, multi-planet, multi-species, conglomeration of all these different cultures. And so the idea that can be isolationist, I don't even know how that's meant to work. Like, they already encompass like half the galaxy. How can you isolate that?
Gradually, one step at a time, I guess. But still, I thought that was, at least so far, was very ham-fisted and very preachy. Because here's like the difference between what Star Trek did before and what it does now. Before, Rob, as you pointed out, it explored. It made you think yourself. Here, it just preaches at you and talks down to you.
And does it without any nuance. I mean, that interview that was with Picard, it was just blatant exposition without any effort in threading what they were saying to have like something out of the character. It's basically just telling us what's going on as opposed to getting an understanding of where Picard is in his life versus, I guess, the public itself. It was just blatant, lazy writing.
Well, should I address the elephant in the room or not? Or are we going to let somebody else do it?
Well, go for it.
Well, of course, this whole show right now is an allegory for the whole immigration business, right?
Mm-hmm.
How blatant? But how blatant was it for Picard to have Romulan? I guess you wouldn't want to call them servants because he probably pays them.
Yeah, it does seem like a weird setup he's got, doesn't it? Because they are kind of like his housekeepers and his butlers.
Yeah, it's very
Well, maybe they all like
okay.
that.
I can't take total credit for this because Annie Trekker brought this up too. He noticed it. It seems a bit on the nose and almost like they didn't really stop to think about it, because it's almost like it would be like if there was a show about Mexican immigrants and the main star of the show was about a rich person who had Mexican immigrants as their work servants.
I'm waiting for another episode where you see, like, Romulans trying to apply for jobs and people are like, well, have you got your work permits here? Let's see your documentation,
Yeah.
Whether they'll go that blatant, I don't know.
Just ask the question, papers, Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have your credentials?
There's going to be are there going to be signs on the around?
Oh, there's going to be Federation checkpoints for Romulans to have to smuggle themselves through.
Yeah, they'll be like, make the Federation great again.
Romulans do not apply. Yeah. I mean, it's.
Well, they've kind of already implied in the media where they've interviewed like Kurtzman and all them, where they've kind of implied that this whole thing is like a 9/11 event for the world of Star Trek, and everything's stemming off it, which now we've blurred the lines. Here we go. Here we are. And I know people have argued left and right with the whole 25% thing and misquoted us on it left and right. But now they have officially crossed the line between 09 Star Trek and the original canon. And a lot of people are noticing the differences, and everything that's popping up is either Kurtzman Trek or related to 09 Trek, it seems to be, for the most part.
Yep.
Said a few minor things, and this is a point that I brought up to Andre before too, like when Data's in his Nemesis uniform, for instance. And I pointed out, well, the movies are owned by Paramount, so wouldn't they technically have the rights to be able to do whatever without having to go through all the bullshit? But we already know there's so much convoluted crap between the whole licensing. I don't know if Andre wanted to touch on that at all, but
basically it's a nightmare. They can do anything, but it has to be separately licensed, and it has to be licensed by production company Secret Hideout from CBS, who are the one broadcasting the series, who has the rights to it. But this is basically just the contracts that were made and are still valid. And it doesn't matter that Viacom and CBS have now merged. You would think that it would be null and void, and it can be. But for as long as Secret Hideout are still making Star Trek, that contract is still in place.
right, which is why JJ is so desperate to get something off the ground for Bad Robot Trek related, because he wants to stay tied to it.
Somebody actually pointed this out. Actually, in Starfleet headquarters, there's some ship models hanging on the ceiling, and the Enterprise is not the TOS Enterprise.
No, it's the one from Discovery. Yeah,
Discovery Enterprise. Yeah,
the 25% different Enterprise.
And we also noticed just from the few shots that even though it's fairly close, there are still some differences in the TNG era Enterprise too, as well, in the flashback sequence.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Very minor, but there are a few. Enough to possibly make it 25% fucking dead.
I wonder if that was why they had all of the scenes there set in 10 forward as well. It's like, I can't show the bridge, that's too distinct, just have them in a generic seating area.
Yeah, because apparently there were scenes in the bridge as well, but they were cut for saving license fees, is what both I, Doomcock, and a couple of others heard as well. But before we dig too much into the specifics of those details, Drinker, now that we have you here, because the rest of us, we basically said what does Star Trek mean to us and how big fans we are of it. How about you? What does Star Trek mean to you? I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of have a long history with Star Trek, probably more so than Star Wars. Like when I was growing up, I was watching the sort of original movies, from Wrath of Khan onwards, especially, and then got into the Next Generation, and loved all of that. I was a big fan of all of those kind of era of shows and stuff. Watched most of Voyager, didn't love it as much, but it was still okay, and enjoyed Deep Space Nine. I think once you got to the TNG movies, started to fade out a bit then, just because they kind of lost the thread of what made Star Trek Star Trek. And then, when you get to things like Enterprise, I didn't really care much for that. And then finally kind of lost interest with Discovery. And the new movies, I've got no time for whatsoever. I even did a video on Into Darkness, just how much I hated it. But the older stuff, absolutely love it. I think it, like you've already said, it presents you with so many interesting ideas, and it allows you to make your own judgments on it, and it gives you a new perspective, which you so rarely get with shows now, and it's such a shame. Sorry, I probably rambled on for too long there.
No, you're fine. Welcome, Mr. H. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Sorry I was late.
No, it's all right. Actually, kind of pretty good timing to get your overall impression of the show, I guess.
Let's begin right away.
Well, I don't know, mixed really. I gave it a 5 out of 10. It was, I don't know. It seemed like a vanity project to me, which I've copped a lot of flack for, because people are like, well, it's called Picard, so what do you expect? Well, ladies and gentlemen, there's an execution with respect to how a show can be pivoted around an individual. He's essentially being a Mary Sue, I guess. I don't know. It was just a bit bland, really. It just seemed a bit like nothing. And watching him run there's no nostalgia watching him run. It was painful, like he shouldn't be running. I don't know. It just didn't seem right to me. And very much, like I say, very much just all out and out a vanity project. I don't know. That's just the impression I got. I don't know about anyone else. I went back to rewatch The Next Generation as well, just to see, because I thought, how they would do the overall like technology and stuff, because the one fascinating thing about the Next Generation is that the technology that they had in it is actually what we have now, basically. You know, like tablets and, do you know what I mean, all this kind of stuff, like flip phones and all these kind of nonsense things.
Right.
But watching them have drones to film an interview and a holographic mirror and all this kind of stuff, it just seemed like an overuse of CGI. And it may be that we'll get that in future, but there just seems to be a big disconnect between how the Next Generation perceived sci-fi to what Picard perceives sci-fi. And it seems like a weird thing to pick up on, but it matters. I think it's science fiction, isn't it? So
I think there was sorry, on you go. I didn't want to interrupt you there.
My subs have been pestering me to talk to you for quite a long time.
Well, there we go.
It's absolutely fine.
No, I was just going to say that when you look back on TNG, there was almost a kind of innocence to the depiction of advanced technology and stuff, whereas now they're trying so hard to make everything look cool and fast-paced and sleek,
crisp and clean.
Yeah, and it just
Sexy
doesn't come off
sci-fi,
right. Yeah, and it's like that was never really Star Trek. That's not what it was meant to be.
No, and even it seemed like at times in TNG, I mean, not all the time, but sometimes it seemed like they almost were, even though they knew they were reliant on technology, they tried to live their lives in spite of it. Like, especially Picard and Riker, it seemed like, and even Data tried to separate himself from so much of the mundane, technology. They were always trying to get back to, seemed like they were always trying to connect in some way to like nature or humanity, or
it was always in the rooms, wasn't it? The hologram. I can't even remember what they're called. The holodecks. Was it holodecks? Isn't it?
Holodeck, yeah.
But my other main complaint is just the dialogue was fucking atrocious. It's literally as if they wrote it up to the wire and they couldn't streamline the dialogue. It is so bad. It's as if a 5-year-old wrote it.
Did you pick up on all the like, we have to spell things out to the audience?
Yes.
Kind of stuff?
Oh, massively. Like, the whole thing. It's incredibly condescending. There's no. It's as if, right? Like, because if people watching this, I don't want to do what the show's done and condescend to you guys watching this. And hello, everyone. Sorry for being late. But I'm sure everyone is well aware that when they go through scripts, there are numerous people that take a look into scripts and they get streamlined and they hand in a draft and it gets kicked back, and there's numerous things that happen with script development, and I don't think any of that happened here. It's literally as if first draft got handed in and they were like, yeah, fuck it, let's do it.
I think there's 5 or 6 writers credited.
Yeah, but even then, how do you get childlike writing? Like, it's just terrible.
And I chuckled before because
writers, actually.
Andre, do you remember the first thing I said to you about the show?
You said so many things. None of them good.
The first thing I said is, and I think I said this to Rob too, it's basically like a tone poem with badly written dialogue that sounds like it's trying to be smart.
Yeah, I think that's actually a pretty good thing. It's not a good thing, but it's a good observation, because that is something I find to be a recurring trait with Kurtzman-produced Trek, that it's trying to be smart without actually being smart. And that's a very painful combination, I think.
Style over substance, isn't it?
Yes, very much so.
The whole show is... Oh my God, did anyone pick up on the really terrible sets as well? Like,
which
seriously.
one in particular?
My God, like when they're having a drink... that was bad as well. But no, when they're having a drink, when they're having like an Earl Grey tea hot with what was it, Dash,
on the patio.
That is so fucking bad. It's like paper mache. Honestly, it's like something they would make out of preschool.
It looks like they filmed it in Stuart's house because he didn't want to leave for the day.
But no, it was so
just
so
whatever
bad.
clothes he was wearing that day. Fuck it, just shoot
I'm
them.
not going out. It's
Just that background wall is. I mean, it's amazing how the thing is about sets is that, like, it wouldn't be such a big deal if they didn't also have beautiful locations, but because you've also got incredible locations juxtaposed with a paper mache walled set behind you, it looks terrible. And you can just compare the two and you go, oh well, that's very clearly a set there. and it looks bad as a result of it. Like, it looks really, really bad because, again, in the earlier scene, you had something great to compare it to. So, like, I left the whole. I left it. I literally laugh out loud moments of bad dialogue, but also just feeling like, oh, well, it's all right, but it's not good and it's not terrible. It was just a weird experience for me because I loved The Next Generation. I thought it was fantastic. Even in hindsight, like you watch it back and there's this earnest sort of nature to the show, which not a lot of shows hold up. And I'm not going to say it absolutely holds up, but it holds up in that respect that it has this earnestness to it. And you go, oh, it's looking through sci-fi with this. Well, it's this utopian lens, isn't it? And there's something quite refreshing about that. But this was just laugh out loud bad in certain moments. And then it gives you just enough to go, well, I'm interested, but I'm not invested. I think that's the best kind of roundup for me.
Yeah.
I'm interested, but I'm not invested. Not even, I will watch it, but I'm watching it more out of curiosity now than anything.
Yeah, and that's what I meant by a tone poem. It's pretty to look at. There's some really interesting ways of that they use some shots, and it's definitely, as far as the cinematography, it's not as nearly as bad as Discovery in a sense that everything's dark and dreary and Dutch angles and shaky cam. I mean, there is some of those things in there.
There is some shaky cam in there, good God.
But not as bad.
And some weird pan shots as well.
Yeah, there's a few.
It's almost like a fly on the wall. It's as if we're going to get into like a training montage of Jean-Luc Picard as he lifts some weights to get ready for ripping through the galaxy. It's like shaky camera. It was like, what the fuck are you doing? So bad.
Gonna need a montage, sports training montage.
Some of it,
it was like that.
I don't know if you guys picked up on this as well, but the amount of jumping around the show does, just in its first episode, it started to really piss me off. It's like,
there's a lot of locations.
We're in France, then we're in Paris, Dodge is in Paris.
Now we're in Japan. Let's not forget about that.
Yeah, then we go to Japan, then we're in San Francisco. It's like, fucking hell. Like, is it just like how many pretty scenery shots can we cram into this one?
I think
that's it. Dream of Mars, Total Recall style.
But that's the thing, like it's that style over substance. So you're right. They are presenting numerous locations because they are genuinely trying to hook people in that are they love the eye candy crap. So people that don't they don't care about any sort of substance. It's like, oh, here's some member berries and here's some things that look good. Here you go. Here's everything that you love. So you are right. Like, they are flitting around to numerous places because.
Well, I think. Go ahead. Sorry.
That's it because of that.
That's a general way of way Alex Kurtzman operates, though. Everything is, and then they go to Japan, and then they go to Boston, and then they go.
This is kind of the J.J. Abrams way of doing things as well. It's like Rise of Skywalker all over again. Just move to a new location. Don't think too much about it.
Well, they come from the same house. And here's the other thing: is I was saying is, and I think Gary and a few other people, Gary from Nerdrotic, and a few other people pointed out the same thing and had the same feeling anyway, and that was, I feel like this episode felt so jagged and out of places because of all the frickin' reshoots, probably. Like, how much of this episode was like, you have this point where she leaves Picard's house, talks to her mother, and then runs into
super weird.
It's like, why did you even have her leave?
It didn't make any sense either. Like,
and then they get right back together.
Yeah,
it'd be different if
like,
they
you just happened to arrive at the exact same time I did. That was lucky.
To me, that felt like a major sequence. Yeah, it felt like there was a major reshoot that had to happen there for some reason. Or that's what it feels like to me. Like, you're trying to.
It feels almost like two episodes cut down into one.
Also, more like 3 or 4.
Picard's caught in this big explosion on the roof of Starfleet,
which would have fucking killed him. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's like 90 years old. Like, it would have shattered most of the bones in his body. But anyway, like, he gets brought back into his chateau, and he wakes up on the couch. Like, shouldn't you be in like an intensive care ward or something? Like, why are you
medical,
home?
Yeah, or questioned by the police.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, like, this is an attack that's happening outside of Starfleet archives. Shouldn't there be Starfleet security, like, detecting transporters and?
Well, yeah.
People didn't pick it up on security cameras. Like, okay, they could have done the footage,
but they don't have cameras. They have sensors.
Did no one see it with their eyes? It was a big explosion.
That's old. That's old Star Trek, Script Doctor, when people would think about those things,
No, remember in Discovery, there's only cameras when it's convenient for the story.
But see, so for me, this is interesting because this is the first Kurtzman stuff I've watched. I didn't. I looked at Star. What is it?
How did
STD.
you avoid
I was like,
this
this is
song?
trash. Like I would never. Why would I ever invest my time in that? So this, obviously, I'm only interested in this because of Patrick Stewart and, well, not even Patrick Stewart, but the character of Jean-Luc Picard. So it's interesting for me to come into this and everyone go, well, this is what we expected. I'm like, well, I had no fucking idea. This is not what I expected at all because I didn't have any expectations with respect to. I've got nothing to go off with respect to Kurtzman, but it seems like all of you guys go, yeah, no, this is textbook Kurtzman, which is surprising, really.
Right, but here's just a fundamental writing thing, and this has to do with that scene that we all agree is just makes no sense when she leaves. Okay, she leaves because she senses they're on their way, right, to get her. Now she just saw herself kick the shit out of 5 guys, Romulans actually. Yeah. And she thinks the best thing to do now is that now that she's put Picard in danger is to get as far away from him as possible, not knowing that they're going to continue to follow her. They could just show up and slaughter his ass in the middle of the night and he has 0 defense now, even though she knows she could just kill 5 of them like that. Right.
Yeah, I think they just needed her to get away so she could have that conversation with her supposed mum that glitches
she couldn't
out.
have just reshot that in a bedroom.
I know, yeah. I
mean, come on. No, they had to show whatever location it was at. Okay, so
that
then
shot of Paris cost a lot of money. They got to keep it in.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. And then she calls her mother. Right? What's the last thing you're gonna do? Call somebody because they're tracing your ass.
Yeah.
It would have made more sense if she made the phone call in Picard's house, then realized, oh shit, they're tracing me because her mom's acting funky anyway. Because I have this feeling that that's not even her mom. Her mom's a fake thing. Like we've seen that one lady with those blue things on her face later down the show. I think they have people that are basically hired to be these girls' parents, and they see them as their like what they're envisioned as, but they're just whoever they are underneath this visage that's got a hologram over top of it.
Oh, has anyone spoken about how fucking stupid it is that they're talking about cloning data?
Yeah, we haven't even got to that yet.
That is crazy.
My God, like, piss off. How did he, how, pray tell, did Data, ladies and gentlemen, did Data draw a picture of his cloned daughters from the future? How? That doesn't make any sense. Like, there's no way they could write that into making sense.
Yeah, here's the thing that they actually explained that basically because what they said was that they created, and this is actually even worse, because basically what they speculated was that okay, but then they created this human android in the image of the picture that he painted, a picture that.
But they didn't say that,
right, and that's why these other people have to be hologrammed over as their parents, like they're saying, yeah, the parents are a computer program.
But they didn't say that they created it in the image.
He's going to paint a picture of his. If he's going to paint a picture of his daughter, it's going to be Lol. I mean,
we've all forgotten about her apparently.
No, screw it. That's for you Trek fans to think about,
Yeah, well, then we had that whole scene with that blonde doctor, and it's a little bit ambiguous because she says, oh, we lost Data because he thought he could graft it to B4 and it just didn't work, and we all but lost all of Data. Now, she says like that little line like that. I don't remember exactly how she says it. I'm paraphrasing there. But then she's like, oh, well, it's all done and over with. Well, then Picard shows her the necklace, and then she starts spilling her fucking guts. And then,
she volunteers information that a character in her position would otherwise not volunteer. And we're getting way ahead of ourselves because, like, right at the beginning when Dodge gets attacked, why is she contacting, like, security or something? Because she's got 5 dead people in her apartment, one of them her boyfriend.
Yeah. Why'd she just run?
The whole thing doesn't make sense. And then, we have the whole, she gets turned on, and that sounded wrong. Switched on.
She's activated.
She's activated, or however they put it in the show, which makes no sense.
It would have been better if she got turned on. It would make for a better fucking.
And it feels very like JJ Spy Girl-esque.
Born Identity.
Yeah.
So they can have some like fast-paced fight scenes. I love how. Sorry, this is jumping ahead again, but when they're having that kind of shootout on the rooftop, her tactic is just to run towards the guy shooting at her quite quickly.
See how far she jumped though.
Yeah, everybody's talking about the jump.
That was full on Wonder Woman style.
That was like a Matrix jump.
Yeah. Which is funny because, to be clear, guys, she is not an android. She is an android's brain basically inside of a human body. So there's no real way her body should be able to physically do this.
Yeah, it's not like Upgrade. Like if you haven't seen that movie on Netflix.
But how can we're going to go back to this cloning crap. How Data doesn't have cells? They
No,
were
he does
saying,
not.
They literally said it is in the show. Literally, we cloned it from one of Data's cells. He doesn't have
They
cells.
say positronic neuron, which is
Positronic
complete
cells, yeah.
wrong. Like positrons are not neurons.
Well, yeah,
But
it'd be like
again,
saying I've taken a piece of electricity from your computer and I've used that to make a clone of your hard drive. It's like, no, that's not how you do it. That doesn't work.
It wouldn't even be that, mate. It would be like I took a bit of your computer and used it to make a dog. That's the better analogy. That's literally what they're saying.
And not only that, a broken piece of computer.
Literally,
Yeah.
no, two dogs. Remember, because they always
basically twins.
They're in
yeah.
pairs.
They always come
Why
in-
do they
Why
come
don't they
in
come in
twos?
tens?
Are they
Why don't they come in
separate?
20s?
That was
What's this
cheap.
then?
That really
Because-
was cheap, that scene. Where it's like,
Because-
yeah,
Why
we've
do
killed
they-
off
yeah.
this character, but it's like, oh, we've got someone who's exactly the same as this character in every respect.
This is why I think that it's like 2 episodes or 2 scripts condensed into one, because there's not enough character development for that revelation to come out as something important.
I think you're
But
right.
It's
Right
clearly
there's-
played
yeah.
as something that should have been. Oh my god! Oh wow! So I definitely think this is a condensing of scripts.
I
in some
think you're
way,
right,
shape, or
Mr.
form.
H. When Picard wakes up at his house and he's like, "Where's Dodge?" and all that, I think that's the beginning. What would have been the beginning of the second episode? I think. you're
Yeah, I
right.
think there was more character development. There must have been more to it because, otherwise, then they're terrible at script writing, which is probably the case anyway. But there's just simply no way that any sane person would write that and have that as the revelation of something that's
I
so
have a
important.
theory of how that happened. I think originally there were supposed to be more episodes, but then they lost Netflix. Netflix pulled out, and then they went with Amazon, and Amazon only. Of course, they paid a crap ton for it, but they paid much, much less than what they wanted. So I think that they had to make cuts, and one of those cuts was cutting the number of episodes, and then they had to condense and combine things, because basically, like, her running out of the house and everything is pretty much pointless, other than he having an excuse to go into his old archives, finding the picture, and then her getting killed later on. But I agree, there's some condensation must have happened there, and I think that's a condensation due to them having less money than they had planned.
Makes sense.
Rob,
Yeah.
wasn't
I'm
there
really-
an interview? Wasn't there an interview with Kurtzman where they were, or somebody like that, where they were talking about they had to basically they had 3 extra episodes, or they cut 2 episodes, and they managed to cut them in to the 10-episode run without losing anything in their words.
I think you're right. I think you are right. I think
So there is some validity to that.
Yeah, I mean,
I was just
we'd
guessing, but you know,
we'd have to take a look and we'd have to take a look and find it. But I think I do remember.
They talk about the end of the series they ran over or something like that, and then they retroactively went back through and found a way to work it all back in. I think is the
Thing
way
is,
he said.
you can't cut out 2 hours of screen time and not expect to lose stuff that's important. Like that's
Well, if it's
some
written
serious
good, yeah.
cutting.
Well,
If
right.
it's
The
written
only
well.
the only reason you have her leave is because you would have separated them for more than just a few hours, and that's literally what it was by the end. Because the next morning he goes to Starfleet and there she is, and it's like, well, okay, that was pointless. and the same thing is I already knew the leaks going ahead, so I knew the moment that she bit the big one that the leaks are true, because that means there's another one out there, and and because there's there's
the
no
poor
sense
focus on the necklace. Like they keep talking about this necklace, and there's no reason to. It's not very fantastic of a piece of jewelry either. It's kind of mundane.
Well, the thing is, when there's two of them represented by the 2 circles. So when you get 4 of them all together, then they get a product placement from Audi. That's the thing. So
Well, if you do 4 of them all together, you probably get the image of like an ovum separating into that first 4 set of cells before it grows into.
Well, and another thing I said to Andre is I think Dodge is probably what's that, an acronym or something like that, where you take several words and put them together and make one.
No, it's a flower thing, wasn't it? Like this flower that's an artificial. And
Oh, is it?
combined
Okay,
from other
never mind.
flowers.
Okay, is that what it was?
They said that, yeah.
Okay. Well, then why'd you make me say that, or let me say that on?
Well, was it that the flower was named after her, or she was named after the
Yeah.
flower?
She was
No,
named
she
after
was
a
named
flower.
after the flower because she's like
Okay.
this mix of like human and android. Basically, like she's an android.
Well, because I
but
was
she's
thinking
made
Dodge.
from-
That's a weird name. Data something, human something.
Yeah. Did anyone else get the feeling that this was very much a vanity project for Patrick Stewart? Like she literally has dreams of him.
I don't know
It just
about it.
seemed very much.
Well,
like,
that to get him on board, but I think this was desperation. This is Kurtzman and gang saying this is all we got. This is
but
the last stitch effort.
he has creative control. So this is what I mean. Like
He's
he
an
had
executive producer, yeah.
yeah he had writing input. It just feels a bit like it genuinely felt a bit like a vanity project. And I know like a lot of people are like, well, it's called Picard. Again, like there's execution. Do you know what I mean? Like. We
Well, I would
see,
say
like,
his interview is probably
is
the
that
most vain about it.
Yeah, the thing is that they introduce him as a character that has apparently is somewhat flawed, but we haven't seen the flawed behavior of him because we instantly pick up where he's saying how flawed he is, and he's like, "Well, now I'm going to go save the universe." It's like, "Oh, all right then." And now, like, girls are having fucking dreams of you, and you're literally coming to terms. You're 90-year-old marathon runner and everything. Like you can just go save the day now, can you? I don't know. It just seemed. I know that shows have to be contrived to a certain amount of, to a certain percentage. I'm aware, but this seemed. Well, it's like a Mary Sue, but with bloody Picard. People having dreams of him, and I just seemed. I don't know. I just don't remember Picard in the Next Generation being this much of an ego. Do you know what I mean? Even the character had a lot of an ego.
His personality's gone through a big change in this.
Okay, good. I'm glad I'm not the only one then.
I mean, could just go through the leaks real quick.
Yeah.
But what I have to say though, when we talk about him running, my God, what a wasted opportunity there was there. And a throwback to Logan when he was running, he should have said in the stairs, like, "Slow down, girl. I'm 93 fucking years old." Did they not have that line in there?
Well, I love how he was like totally solid, like running up to a point, and then it's just like all of a sudden he's just completely knackered on the stairs and he can't go any further. There's like there was no kind of
yeah. And on top of that, like Picard's got decades of experience in strategy working for Starfleet, and the one thing he lets Dodge do is take him upstairs to a building so that they can't run anywhere. They just narrowed down their limit of escape.
He's an admiral, for fuck's
well,
sake.
that's
It takes him into a dead end.
Also, if your opponents have got the ability to beam in to attack you, they could appear anywhere. Like,
but they have the ability to beam out anyway, don't they? She literally just beamed in and turned up to where he was. So can't they just beam out, for God's sake?
Well, if you did that, you wouldn't have an action set piece. And we have to
You
have
wouldn't
those
have
in
an
this Kurtzman's Trek, yeah.
Yeah, and you need those Kurtzmanisms, don't you? You need to like have some directorial.
Well, Kurtzman is just
trademark.
trying to copy JJ, and JJ is just trying to copy everyone he likes. And when you have a copy of a copy, you get what we've seen.
You get Steve from Multiplicity.
Yes, and he's not as charming as Michael Keaton.
Did we
Number
say
4.
spoilers? Because if we show this, people might.
Oh yeah, we do say spoilers.
Yeah, I said that way early on when you first came on. Yeah.
The
All
title and everything.
good because I came on and I just immediately started spoiling the shit out of
That's
it.
right. That's what I did. That's what I meant. Just when Critical Drinker first came on, I'm like, fuck it, we're just gonna put spoilers thing up here. But yeah.
It's like,
I don't mean that. But these are spoilers for the rest of the season.
These are spoilers for the rest of the season, guys.
So, but have we warned people about that because they might?
Yeah.
not
Well,
watch
I
this.
just kind of brought up. We might as well get into them.
But a whole bunch of people might just click off.
Yeah. Hopefully they don't.
Okay, before we do that.
Well, sorry,
guys,
ladies and gents in the audience.
Guys, everyone that does not want spoilers for the rest of the series, go take a leak, take a drink in the honor of the Critical Drinker or something like that. Come back in 5 minutes and we'll do the spoilers really, really quick. Okay?
Yeah. The first bit that popped up there was behind the scenes stuff anyway. Here's the actual bits about the show. So if anybody on the panel doesn't want to know, plug your ears. The Dodge twins both hold the consciousness memory of Data blended into their own. Although the first Dodge dies in episode 1, which happened, his entire personality is awkward by the end of the season, meaning Data, I believe. Dodge is a positronic brain in a human body. Therefore, Data is literally an empowered young woman by the end of the season. Bruce Maddox, who you might remember from The Next Generation, episode Measure of a Man, is modeled on Donald Trump. Here comes the Donald Trump business. He is the key antagonist this season, even though he just starts out as being a mysterious creator of Dodge who Picard is searching for. We already had that kind of established in the first episode. He was behind the attack on Earth with the synths, working with Romulan Tal Shiar. Crusher is confirmed to be dead in episode 9, which makes no sense why we would kill her when she's still alive. But anyway, she and Picard...
Sorry?
Crusher would be Dr. Crusher. That'd be
right,
yeah. Sadly, not Wesley.
Yeah, Wesley's. Oh, Wesley's. I don't think that's in this bit of leaks, but I there's a ton of these leaks. This is just a short bit of it. I think within these leaks somewhere else they said that they do mention Wesley. He is literally working as the diversity captain for the fucking Federation. I'm not kidding. That's what they said. So I don't know if that's true.
Federation's already diverse. You don't need a diversity.
I know, right? It's like, what the hell? This is stupid. That's like the most redundant job you could have there.
They have more than met their quotas.
Man, they're really going to get a lot of shut up Wesley for that.
Yeah.
You might as well just call it the Federation Department of Redundancy Department.
Exactly.
I mean,
of redundancy.
Yeah.
Girardi,
The Department of Redundant Affairs.
yeah.
There we go,
Girardi,
yeah.
Allison Pill's character is revealed to have been born male. Yay. Like that
Hello.
is important for some reason, I guess. She
Rebel.
develops it.
Who's born male?
Girardi, Allison
is that?
Pill's character.
Oh, who's that again? Have we seen that person?
Let's see here.
yeah, it's the blonde doctor lady.
Is it the blonde doctor? Really?
Yeah, that's the
Really?
blonde one. That's Alison Pill.
Oh.
Oh.
She was in Newsroom and some other stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
She develops a comedic back and forth with the EMH. Rios sacrifices his life by the end of the season, but is survived by his EMH doppelganger, who will stay with the crew in season 2.
Oh, that's
Rafi,
like Red Dwarf.
yeah, Rafi is addicted to the Star Trek equivalent of painkillers. She appears to get over it, but relapse due to Narek.
What about 7 of 9?
So that's coming up here too.
Okay, so we have to have an opioid. We have to have an
Opioid addiction. Okay, yeah. Narek is ultimately revealed to have been pulling a lot of the strings with Maddox. He's been assimilated, but as a sleeper agent by the Borg. Episode 10 cliffhanger is a reveal of Q. Just a line from him in an appearance. He will play a bigger role in season 2. And it's funny that a lot of the people that have been showing up in Picard, including Q, were at Star Trek Las Vegas this last year. Hugh is working for the Romulans on the Borg Cube. They've come into possession of the Romulans have been dismantling the cube's tech and weapons. And I think this is what you said was in the Countdown comic, Andre.
Yes. In the Countdown comic, which is co-written by Alex Kurtzman, there it is established that the Narada, the ship that went through the black hole and somehow wasn't grinded up and sent to hell, instead was sent into the Kelvinverse, was augmented with Borg technology, which the Romulans were experimenting on at like some distant station or something, and there the Narada was upgraded. And this maybe is the place where they did that Borg upgrade. So that actually is consistent with what Kurtzman wrote 10 years ago.
Right. Oh, look, he remembered stuff. So Q is working with Romulans.
No, Hugh. He's a Borg
Hugh,
from the
H-U-G.
TNG.
Right.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people in the chat thought you said
Not John
Q as well.
Delancey.
No,
This
Q
is,
does show up. Q shows up at the end of episode 10.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it's
All right, then.
Q that's working with the Romulans.
Q, yeah, sorry about that. Yeah,
No, that's fine.
I mean, this is some of this stuff is like getting quite deep into like TNG. You know, like you have to have a pretty decent knowledge of that show to kind of understand how all of this fits together.
But you got to remember, don't give them too much credit yet, dude. It'll just be played as member berries, so it'll be thrown. I would imagine it's thrown as offhand things. I can't imagine like a lot of, or it'll be explained as really simplistically as a lot of the stuff in this episode was, very handheldy. You got to remember, like the needless exposition of shit that was thrown out there. Oh yes,
Yeah.
well, Data was my friend. He was the best, and he was this, and blah blah blah. Like that, they're not. That's not for fans. That's for new people, because you wouldn't explain that to new people, to fans, would you? So all of this stuff won't be. It will be done offhand, member berries, or explained in a way that is incredibly condescending. I reckon. Anyway, I mean, look, first episode logic would dictate that's how they're going to continue anyway.
Yeah, there's a little bit more here. Hugh's been in charge of deprogramming the drones and rehabilitating them. Seven has joined the group called Fenris Rangers. She campaigned
Fenris Rangers. Oh,
Yes.
nice.
Starfleet. She has campaigned Starfleet to take more active role in rescuing Borg, but they ignored her. They're freedom fighters initially for Borg drones, but eventually helping refugees more underprivileged in the galaxy. Here we go with more refugee stuff.
Sorry, I was just going to say
No.
you know, using the Borg again like this, I'm just like, please leave them alone. You know, the Borg were so cool back in the day because you didn't know much about them, and they were so like monolithic as a species. But now it's like we're getting
We've
into
seen the
this
Borg Queen, haven't we? We've seen it all.
Yeah, and now it's like we're in this territory where there's like different factions of Borg, and they've got sleeper agents and stuff. Like, that's not how the Borg operate. That's not what they're meant to be.
Sleeper agents. That's just laughable. Like, god damn.
All right, there's two more bits to this bit, and then we'll leave it at that. The Narada was augmented with Borg technology, scavenged from the cube, which is why it's so massive and fucked up. I have no idea how a mining ship is best choice for tech, but whatever. Maddox, and that's how it's written. Maddox is initially portrayed sympathetically by Dodge, but we're led to believe he's a Soong-like figure. He's kind of like the Wizard of Oz that everybody's journeying to find. But yeah, he's nothing like what they're expecting.
It's going to make androids great again.
Oh, they can't be called androids. They're called synths now.
Yeah, then he's going to make synths great again.
No, they're called sympathetic. No, I can't think of anything quippy, so fuck it.
They are sympathetic.
I have to say, though, that Trump has had a very impressive film career, even though he wasn't in most of it. I mean, of course, he was in Back to the Future, and then he was in Star Trek Discovery, and now he's in this. Pretty impressive, I gotta say.
Well, we haven't even got into we've lost someone. Who's gone?
Tom will be back.
Bye, Tom.
Shall be back, yeah.
We haven't even got into the Brexit things, which they apparently are going to be chucking into this season as well. Like,
they did that a little bit already in the beginning when he screamed like so angry that it's not Starfleet anymore.
Yeah, well, the isolationist stuff. Yeah, I get that. But I mean, like, whether it comes front and center or not. The thing is, like, I'm gonna just comment on a video that I did already, because I think it absolutely applies to this. If this continues down the path that it is, I doubt the ratings will stay high, because one of the things which came out recently was how Batwoman has completely flopped on the ratings, and I compared. A great analogy was genuinely to Donald Trump as well as Boris Johnson and Brexit. Is the fact that people, regardless of your political leanings, no one wants to be told repeatedly how fucking shit their country is and how shit they all are. Like, Boris Johnson and, again, Trump, both of those people ran on elections of saying, no, we're great. We want to make things really, really good. We want to do this. We want to do that. And it's the same with shows. No one wants to consistently hear agendas preaching nonstop about how the world is terrible. No one wants to hear it. It gets so just tiresome, and just... it's just, you know it. You know what's going to come from it. You know the outcome, and it's repetitive crap. People like a bit of optimism. That's why they liked The Next Generation. If this persists in the way that it's like the way it seems to be, people are just going to tune. Well, I would imagine anyway. People will just tune out, because like, you want a bit of optimism once in a while. Like, fucking hell.
Well, yeah, I mean, look what happened to Doctor Who recently. It's gone down a similar path.
Exactly the same thing. Exactly the same. No one wants to be like banged over the head persistently about how they must do better, and how it's the same. Like, the laughable thing about, and I'll talk about it briefly, is about Batwoman, for instance, is they keep banging on about how no one is accepting of lesbians and homosexuals and things like this. We live in the most fucking accepting society we've ever been in, you retards.
Yeah.
Like, you literally can't be in the most. We can't get any more accepting than where we're in right now.
Especially in the UK, I got to say.
Exactly, the UK, like, exactly. And this is what I mean. Like, this show, if it continues the way it is, nah, like this seems to be the way it's going. Exactly the same thing of no, the world's terrible. You know the fact that you like. It's just anyway. That's my small rant over. Apologies, chat.
Yeah. No,
No, chat loved it. So yeah, no worries.
think about when the original series first aired. It was during the Vietnam War. We had massive civil rights battles in the United States. You know, protests constantly. I mean, we had the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King, Robert F. Kennedy. I mean, there was a need for an optimistic vision of the future, and Star Trek was that need. I mean, it was at one of the most turbulent times in American history, that and probably in a large part of the world too. I mean, so to come in and with this new vision of Star Trek, I mean, and to just reinforce, everything sucks, everything's terrible. You know, and you're just reminding people of like what you just don't listen enough. I wanted.
Well, it takes away that whole spirit of adventure and exploration that used to make Star Trek so appealing.
Right.
You know,
Well,
this idea, like, okay, you know, here on Earth or within human society, we've solved all the petty bullshit that we fight over, like resources and that sort of thing, and now we can turn our eyes to a bigger goal of exploring.
We could boldly go,
Yeah.
can't we?
Exactly.
You know,
And that was
there's optimism there. There's something. There's
we already
something
got our shit
beautiful in
together,
that, and
yeah.
it's true escapism. You know, there's something good about that. The thing that everyone seems to forget now, the showrunners, not the viewers, is that we've got consistent shows across the board, all singing from the same fucking tune. So I could tune into one show and it's telling me the same, ham-fisted agenda as the other show that I've just clicked off. There's no escapism for something which is. You know, I'm literally watching a show about what I experience on my day-to-day life. Like, fuck off.
It's a never-ending
Like, it's
cycle,
just
isn't it?
pathetic.
Because the more you get bombarded with politics in every aspect of your life, the more desperate you become to escape from it. And you know,
So
the more these
on
shows
Picard.
heap it onto you. It's like you can literally never get away from it.
Exactly, and then they wonder why people tune out. And this is like, again, like to go back to you know, again, same kind of thing. Like, people just tune out and people become less accepting of these messages that they're trying to tell you because they're fucking sick and tired of it nonstop.
Well, it's a message without any sort of motivation behind it other than you should hate this or you should hate that.
Yeah.
The Star Trek was all about like challenging the concept or the assumption of human nature. So many,
but from a perspective of people that have resolved it as well.
Yeah.
So
like
it was
saying
looking at this utopia that we lived in, and then assessing other alien species or coming across, the Borg, for instance. You know, these kind of these kind of societies, and going, right, well, you have suffered what we have suffered, but we have come out on top. Therefore, you can now learn from us. But it wasn't even done in like
it's not even just about the
preachy, condescending. Yeah, that's what I mean.
Like, challenging the fact that we are not inherently evil to each other. We have to work together to survive. That's how we've made it this far in our species. And Star Trek is saying we can go further. And this is this is one interpretation of how we've gone further. But when you get
super uplifting, it was nice.
It was nice because, I mean, that's all you hear about, at least when I went to high school and college. All you get is like humanity's naturalistically bad. We all care about ourselves. We don't care about each other. And I'm like, this is not the message you should be hammering into to us. You should be talking about like, we've had to stand on the shoulders of people who've done bad things in order for us to be better as a whole. And we have to acknowledge that those bad things happened and try not to repeat them. But being able to do that is actually far more benevolent and a better opportunity to reduce suffering in the future than ever before. And now we have these other writers, and I use air quotes for them because these people who are working under Secret Hideout are far from writers, but they're just pontificating ideas of negativity to say that there's no hope with our species. We're inherently bad, and only a handful of people who have Mary Sue-like powers can make a change. And it's antithetical to Star Trek.
Well, one of the things, though, is that, and I actually brought this up on a live chat with Robert Meyer Burnett, is that you have an entire generation of people who are writing and working in Hollywood who really don't have any heroes. I mean, and
that's because the last 20 years there haven't been any role model heroes in our media.
Exactly, and everybody, everybody from popular politicians to sports figures to actors to people in the community, you always hear of another person being torn down, And so now that's being reflected in all the media and in every medium, in movies, television, novels. I mean, how many more times do we have to see the broken hero trope?
Yeah, it's like you're not
Picard-
allowed to just have a person who's just kind of heroic, who does good things, who acts selflessly.
Earnest.
Always
Well,
has
that's
to
Have a
be
bit of
right
earnestness,
nowadays.
you know.
Yeah.
The thing is,
Picard-
like, it seems like we entered into an era, right? Obviously, a good little while ago, where, and this is a weird analogy, but I think it works. Everything seems to be like a very serious take on Black Mirror. Like Black Mirror looked at things from this lens of, well, you know, computers are bad and we're going to, you know, blow us all up, and humanity's this and humanity's that. And it's like we've just taken that and gone, oh, we'll just make everything like Black Mirror, but on a serious level. Whereas Black Mirror like took things and made you question things in a good way. Now we've got this, you know, looking at dystopian societies and how the world is all shit and this is that, and it's just, it's like they because obviously media peaks and troughs in trends, doesn't it, right? And I'm trying to put my finger on the button of what started this trend.
Oh,
And
I can
all
tell
I
you.
can think of, all I could think of, so it'd be good to get your opinion. All I could think of was it was Black Mirror, but they did it in a much more sophisticated manner.
No,
Maybe
it was
the-
actually further than that. What ended up happening, and I picked this up, it was in 2001, and it's with the show Smallville. They have the character of Clark Kent forever stuck in that
Oh, yeah,
refusal of the
interesting.
call.
Oh,
And he's
yes.
a whiny little bitch. And he
Yeah.
stays that way for almost 10 seasons. And basically he has influenced a bunch of people who watch the show into just staying where they are, not trying to grow, not embracing what they have and trying to do good with it, but instead living in denial. And you can see that pattern among the generations that would have grown up around that show. It's all about no, life sucks.
But
I don't
how
want to
young
be
are
this
these
way.
people then?
I'm
mate?
avert to a responsibility. And
How
how is
young are
that
these
heroic?
people?
Well, we run into them all the time on the internet. That's the thing. They're the Twitterati. They're this under probably 30, maybe 25 people that never really grew up with anything but modern age technology and the internet and living their life online. Because before that, you know, everything was kind of a little more subdued. And the problem is they believe Hollywood. They believe what they're preaching, because we've said this a million freaking times on After Dark and probably a dozen times here. And that is that for some reason, Hollywood is behind the curve on this one, even though they've always been a bit of, you know, ahead of the curve when it comes to progressiveness on screen. Behind the scenes, they haven't been. And they haven't been for so long that in like institutions like this and Hollywood and probably, you know, other big corporate business, you know, sexual harassment and all that kind of stuff is still a thing, and most of your bosses are white men, etc. down the line. But where we've seen in the other parts of the world, where, you know, in the 9-to-5 jobs and all that kind of stuff, most of us already know we're not supposed to sexually harass our coworkers.
That's just common sense, isn't it? Unless you're
Exactly,
dick-
you know.
This is the thing. Like people are like people bang on about it like it's this rampant thing, and it's really not. Like
No, it's
again,
just in the
it's
areas I
same
just
thing.
mentioned, really. Yeah, and
it's the
yeah.
same, like, people are just sick and tired of hearing about this bollocks.
So the Hollywood world, between that and, you know, and the other business that they keep pushing in our faces with this, you know, they're pushing farther, and we're like, we already went past this. We already know, you know, we went through the racism thing. I've already had bosses that are women. I've already know I'm not supposed to sexually harass coworkers at work.
that
You know,
is-
I think
that's-
this
Same.
is Ricky
That's-
Gervais kind of summed it up perfectly with his Golden Globes speech. You know, where he's
Oh,
just
it's
like,
beautiful.
"Fuck off with
I
all
like
this
it.
yeah.
stuff."
I mean,
Like,
we
we're
already
just
went
thinking
through
of
this
it.
in the 90s, guys. It's like, what the fuck, you know?
Well,
I
yeah,
always-
we have kind of gone against the normalization of differences. I mean, that was
Yeah.
the best part about it. Like, I've had things where someone says, oh, like I'm talking to a guy and he's like, oh yeah, my husband did this. And I don't even acknowledge the fact that a man has told me that he's married to another guy. I'm just talk to him like I normally talk to
Yeah,
him.
you
Right.
don't care.
But-
This is exactly the same thing. Going back to Batwoman, it's exactly the same thing behind that show. They are constantly acting as if people, like literally, the latest episode. I can't even believe I remember this crap, to be fair. But I watched the show to do reviews on it because it's fucking hilarious. Is Batwoman is literally offended that Gotham thinks she's straight.
Oh
right?
yeah, I've mentioned that on my
I-
Twitter too.
Oh my god! Like what? Are you heterophobic now? Are we? Is that we're allowed to do this now? Pathetic. But they literally convey that that's the worst possible thing for her. She literally lets off a known terrorist who risked their lives and extorted potentially millions out of people because she's a lesbian for acceptance. Like, we are way past. They literally say in the show, "Oh, don't tell me that it's going to get better because I know it's not. I'm going to have to hide my girlfriends, and I'm going to have to be happy with an ancillary character representing me on a show where the lead is a fucking lesbian." How can you say that? We are way past this level of acceptance that they're even preaching on the show, and it's exactly the same about all of this stuff that they bang on about.
When I watched the first episode, I just assumed it was a parody show. Like, it's
yeah,
not even
it might as
real.
well be.
It's terrible. The writer of that episode, Mystery, so the writer of that episode that you just watched, it was also the writer of the pilot, and she has no idea how to do a ticking clock.
She's the showrunner.
She's the showrunner. I won't mention her by name because she doesn't deserve it. But on top of that, like,
she's done an article. She did an interview where she literally explained why, and it's the most laughable It's the laughable interview behind it, which goes to show why the show is so bad, because they are literally saying, we're doing it because this is how I grew up. Yes, mate, that's how you grew up years ago. Not only that, you probably didn't grow up with that level of lack of acceptance. Yeah, because it wasn't even back then. I remember it. Like, it still wasn't even, people didn't really care anyway. You get kids being dicks because kids are dicks anyway. Kids are assholes to anyone.
But they grow out of that, and that's what happens.
Exactly.
That's how she
right. Yeah, that just comes out of them being naturally self-absorbent. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then on top of that, they do this beat. They do this beat in the show where Batwoman has an interview with Catco saying she's gay, so she's just knocked out, like, instead of having 50% of the population possibly being Batwoman, it's now like 3%, because now they're like, all people have to do to find her is like target who's gay, who's in Gotham, who's a woman, and then all those other gay women in Gotham are at risk of being killed by a super criminal because they want to kill Batwoman when she's not in costume. So she just narrowed down the possibility of finding her secret identity and risk harming to a disenfranchised minority.
Because God help anyone think that she's straight, right? Like, Jesus.
Yeah, she said that if she's like advertised as being straight in Batwoman, then again, it's good luck trying to find her, because 50% of the population is women. So, but now she's just narrowed it down so specifically to the point where it's not like finding a needle in a haystack. It's like finding a tractor on a freshly mowed down farm. Like, it's right there.
Mate, because I kid you not, I bet you anything that will inspire loads of other people to now turn lesbian, and it'll be this rising force in lesbian activity in Gotham. That's what it's going to be. I tell you what,
the police will be like talking to each other. Like, we've got high concentrations of lesbianism in this district.
No, it's going to be like Spartacus, isn't it? It's like, no, I'm a lesbian. No, I'm a lesbian. Like, yeah. Anyway,
I'm more lesbian than
Picard,
you are.
Shall we?
Yeah, let's get back to Picard.
This is way more interesting to talk about.
Well, yeah, because it's. Did you guys get to hear the rest of the leaks before I had Firefox decide it wanted to update on me?
Yeah, we got through all the leaks.
Okay, good. All right.
So I don't think anyone are looking forward to what is to come.
And I'm not blowing anybody's eardrums out anymore.
Well, you were.
You're good.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what is going on with
we would know our eardrums are already blown.
Windows 10. Yeah, my hearing hasn't been the same since seeing the Ramones back in '91. But that
sounds about right.
But the whole thing is about, like I said, you have an entire generation that's grown up without heroes, and they don't know how to write heroes. But heroes, they think, and the whole Mary Sue thing, they think that is what constitutes a hero. Someone who's perfect. And they're afraid to.
I think it depends on the gender and the ethnicity of the hero. Like, if you're going to write a female lead now, essentially she has to be perfect. She can't she can't get scared. She can't ever be unsure about things. She can't lose, especially not to a man. And so
she also can't do anything either. Like,
but it's. I've been banging on about this bloody movie because it really was a great representation of people that went out and wrote a proper character arc for a female in this day and age. Last year, we had Ready or Not, right? Epic, super low budget movie with Samara Weaving as the lead. She is, she's some like sassy, insecure, lack of confidence sort of, woman at the start. Goes through this really good arc and becomes a badass. And I can believe her when she's killing people towards the end, right? Because, I don't want to look at someone that's perfect, because I'm not perfect. I want to look at people that I can connect with and that go through something. And if you haven't watched Ready or Not, guys, you genuinely should. Like, it's a really, really cool, low budget horror movie. Well, I say horror movie, it's not, but pseudo horror thriller thing. It didn't get nearly as much attention as it should have done, but that's probably one of the best strong female character arcs I've seen in, for the last couple of years at the very least, because they've all just been, as you said, Drinker, is that they're all literally literal perfection. They cannot possibly be anything other than, it's literally, it's like a pre-packed sandwich, pathetic, perfect, but lacking all flavor.
Isn't that interesting though, that the example you're able to give us is like this low budget kind of horror thriller movie, that probably didn't get much of a release or anything. That's the only time when they're willing to take that kind of a risk on a character like that. But they would never do it in a big.
Well, I remember in the day when if you saw a Mary Sue type character, they were the antagonist. Like the hero was the one that was flawed, and then they're being shown up by this Mary Sue type character who eventually, by usually the end of the story, you see that they're all fake. And I'm just wondering, like, what happened to that? They kind of flipped it around now, where the main character is perfect and the antagonist is an incompetent.
Well, especially if they're a woman, because they can't show the woman being flawed or weak in any way, and that's the biggest.
And I think that's out of fear because of social media, because they know if they have a character like that, they'll get lambasted by the Twitterati. But
isn't it odd? Because again, like I've seen your review of it, and I'm sure everyone else has seen the show itself. The Boys, no one like that is staggering TV, right? Incredibly well written, incredibly well executed. And it covers agendas, it has political themes that are going on in current present day, and it tackles them with such a great finesse. It doesn't ram it down your throat. It tackles it in a way which people get engaged with, and it doesn't disenfranchise you or disengage you from the show itself. And again, the women, they're not Mary Sue's either. Yet literally everything else, just, God.
Well, and to go back to your point a little bit, Mr. H, it shouldn't matter what sex the character is in the lead character. It shouldn't matter what race they are. Hell, it shouldn't even matter if they're human or not. Look at like movies like Short Circuit. You relate with a robot who's actually just a puppet. And that's what good writing used to do. You could relate to anything on screen as long as it had good writing. If you made a character relatable, that's the point. It doesn't and to me, that's used to be what movies were about, is escapism. You brought that up earlier too. I think, it's like we keep cramming these politics into our escapism. We don't want to go see it in escapism. That's why we tried to go to the movies in the first place, is to get away from it all, Yeah. And then here we are again. Yeah. And then here we are now just cramming it down our throats, to where at least the old Star Trek, once in a while they'd bring up a few, social issues, but you can take it from there, Rob, because I have a feeling I know what you're going to say.
Well, my big thing is that obviously this Picard isn't Picard. It wants to be for Star Trek fans, like I said, but it doesn't quite give itself over to the old school Star Trek fans. So who is like Star Trek Picard for? That's my thing. It seems like, as we said, they cater to people on the Twitterati who are not going to watch this show, who want to see all these tropes, but they turn around and say, so did you see this? What, are you kidding me? I'm not going to watch that.
Well, they've gone for a kind of awkward middle ground where it's like they want to have all this, the references to TNG and all that sort of thing, but they want to handhold you through it so that people who know nothing about it can get through it. And so they are trying to appeal to everyone, but the result is they're not satisfying anyone.
Right. By their logic, the movie Rocky should only appeal to Italian 30-year-olds that live in very low living circumstances in Philadelphia. That's not the case. Many men and women of all races and creeds and everything, and pun intended there probably, can relate to Rocky because he's the underdog. We know he's probably not going to win in that first movie, but he's giving it his all. He's doing everything he can. He's got the shot, and he's not going to let it slip through his fingers. And anybody knows if they got a shot at whatever it was they loved, it doesn't have to be boxing, but you relate to the fact that this is what this guy wants, and I know how he feels because I wish I had whatever it was said your boxing thing in your life. You know, that's the way movies and television are supposed to work. You're not supposed to just relate to them because, like Rob always says, if movies were always supposed to be about somebody I want to relate to, all I'd ever watch is Jack Black movies.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Also, it's about seizing the opportunity. That's the theme of the hero's journey itself. It's just seize the opportunity, the call to adventure, the hope that you will go through a change. That is our life. And you know, you miss every opportunity you don't take. So we don't have that anymore now. It's just about handing out and demanding or entitlement.
And that
just
breaks back
deciding that
down.
you're something.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Critical Drinker. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, sorry. I think we kind of just went at
Yeah,
the
we
same
get
time.
over the same time. But I was just going to say, yeah, that's a problem with the participation generation or participation ribbon generation is what we're dealing with here. Sorry, go ahead, Critical
Yeah,
Drinker.
and it's the struggle that defines a good character. You know, like using your example of Rocky, the fundamentals of that is you take a character who's got some flaws, but like likability, and you give them a problem or a challenge to overcome, and you watch them struggle to try to do it.
Yep.
And that's the essence of any good story. And
It's a
you know, we don't get that now because we don't get the struggle, because people find struggle hard, and we don't like to do hard things in life. You
Can't
know, we
help
just want
people's
everything to be
fifis, can
easy.
Oh yeah,
And-
screenwriting, storytelling 101 is don't make things easy for your main character.
Yeah.
Like, it's simple, but we're not seeing that here. I mean, especially in Picard, like Dawes, she has the only struggle. She gets her head smacked into a coffee table, and then when they say they're going to knock her out, they just put a bag over her head. Which I don't know if that's knocking out in the 24th century or not, but it's here. It's basically just putting a bag over your head.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
not
like
only
sleepy
that,
time bag, basically put it on.
so
and pass out.
she's never dealt with any trauma earlier in her life. So at any point in her life, you would think that once she would have dealt with any kind of trauma, that would have triggered or activated her. That she's never fallen on you know, in her knee or even broke a bone ever. Nothing.
No slipping on ice in the 24th century.
Exactly. Yeah, she must have lived a very cushy life to where that never activated previously. That's what I thought too at that moment. Sorry, you just made me think of that.
Actually, she
The
might
only
only
thing
be
I
a few
liked-
years old. Yeah.
The only thing I liked about the way they handled it is that she was never smug about it. You know, when she uses these skills to defend herself and stuff, obviously she's doing these incredible fight moves, but she's kind of baffled as to how it happened, and she's kind of
Yeah,
scared
she
of the whole
seems surprised.
situation.
Yeah.
So thank God they didn't have her be like, haha, yeah, I kicked your ass there. You know, so
We
at
haven't
least
met
they-
her sister
That
yet.
was
Yeah,
stripped from the born identity. However, as the script doctor pointed out, we don't know how old she is. How long has she been there with the boyfriend and everything? A week, a month, a year? Think back to Blade Runner, because here I see a lot of Blade Runner with like the Sean Young's character in Blade Runner. She thought she was human, although she was a replicant too. How old was she? We don't know. Less than 3 years, certainly. And that could be the same thing here. Maybe we'll learn that it's all fake her entire life around her. Like the twin sister, the Romulans around, they knew what she was. They were just deceiving her.
Yeah, so it's not really made clear if the age, really, is it? These
No,
these
and-
clones.
But they
They
got
imply
human
with Picard's
flesh,
memory
haven't
that-
they? So
Yeah.
maybe.
They imply
Dunno.
that with Picard, that her memory about the flowers, like that's hers, and no one can take it away from her. And like they're implying that that's not a real memory, and that it could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
saying. Yeah.
Straight out of Blade Runner.
Also,
Yep.
has anyone commented on Data? Like, was anyone disengaged by his
Pudgy?
appearance? Yeah, like I hate to look. Obviously, it's not his fault, but it's just
No,
he's
it's
supposed-
not.
He's supposed
It's
to
Brent-
not.
to make-
Brent
'cause I've
Spiner
met Brent
wanted to
Spiner.
stop. He wanted to stop
Yeah.
playing Data after
Yeah.
Nemesis, which was 18 years ago, because
They
he
must have
felt he
given
was
him a
getting
good-
too old and he couldn't realistically play Data anymore. And now here we
Yeah.
are, almost 20 years later, and he's doing him again.
But
I
they must
just
have given
saw
him a lot of
him.
money for it. I just think it was. I don't know. When I saw it, I was like, "Oof, that looks off." Because again, they're playing it for member berries, but like, who's that for? Because people who liked the Next Generation will look at that and go, "Oof." Oi."
I just met him in Las Vegas in August, and his face is not that fat.
Yeah, I know. I was just about to say I've met him about.
But it might
4
be the
years
makeup.
ago.
In fairness,
It is,
guys.
but here's
Yeah.
the problem: is we live in an age where you can go up on YouTube now, and some dude down the street has made a deep fake
Yeah.
of Tom Cruise that looks like Tom Cruise, circa 1985.
You missed
How
out a chance
can-
to say we live in a society then, mate, to be fair. I'm disappointed in you, but all right.
Oh, I did. Yeah, it's true. Thank you. But it's sad that we live in a society.
Yeah. But I just
Yeah.
found that quite a disengaging.
Where deep
and
fake
also
though
a very,
is
but it was also just a really something which was like something very poor that they overlooked, which they technically shouldn't have done, if that makes sense. Like there's no logistical reason as to why that should be something where I go oof, and look at it as something terrible.
No,
Yeah.
with
Like,
deep fake.
they have enough time to rectify that, and it also, to me, disregarding all of the other kind of stuff where we're looking at with this show, that fundamentally shows me a distinct lack of care for what they're creating, because that's something which they would have screen tested, because they would have screen tested him long before filming, right? They would have put him back in and said, right, how do you look in the makeup now? How do you look in the uniform? Because obviously it's, new outfits they would have had to have made for him and all these kind of things. And they would have gone, that doesn't look particularly great. There's no one that will tell me that they would have said, yeah, that looks great. They just wouldn't have done. And at the end of the day,
who doesn't care would say yes. That looks great.
Lack of,
move on.
yeah, but you know what I mean. Like to me, it just shows a distinct lack of care and attention to what they're creating, which then to me, I look at this and I go, well, why should I care? Like, because you're adding these things which are member berries for me, because I like the Next Generation. So that's clearly for me. It's for people that like the Next Generation. But if you don't care about the member berries that you're even injecting into the show, then, what am I getting from this? Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, wasn't particularly great then.
No, I agree. And I kind of knew that Data wasn't really there, because when I talked to Brent Spiner, he kind of alluded to that, but he's like, I'm not supposed to say that probably, so don't go reporting it now. And then the next day it winds up in one of the other trade papers. I was like, you son of a...
Is it just me as well, or the kind of intro, did it seem a bit convoluted that you have these two major events kind of side by side with each other, and it's not kind of clear initially what we're meant to focus on as the big issue. You've got the destruction of Romulus and the fact that you've now got all these Romulan refugees that Picard tried to rescue, but then simultaneously you've got this explosion on Mars and this attack.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah, and it's like, it's two massive events that are going on at the same time, and it just kind of confuses the narrative. It felt like it should have just focused on one.
It's not like I think they should. Well, also, like, as you're expertly pointed out, it's not even only that. It's the fact that you got these two massive events, which then ricochet down and into domino effect of banning synthetics, and then the cloning things, and it's just setting up too many like big ideas in a first episode. And again, I guess it points down to the fact that this is probably 2 episodes in one, but it's just too much all in one go. Like,
but on
it's
top
like,
of that, these are stories that happened 20 years ago in the past with Star Trek. Like, these aren't. This is a story that happened. That's about addressing the effects of an inciting incident that happened 20 years ago. 2 inciting incidents that happened 20 years ago. So it's not even active. It's like the recourse. Like, this happened in the past, so there's no real urgency with regards to what's going on. And now we have this very, very intimate story where this one young woman who has a positronic brain for some reason has just been executed by some Romulans. And now Picard is like, well, that's my day. It's like there's nothing more for him to really do. He still goes to Okinawa for, I don't know why. Like, he just wants to know more.
There as well, like,
they got those little beam across wherever the hell you want to go doorway things.
But then again, like, I don't know.
No,
it's just really
weird.
It's just a lot of meh, but hopefully it'll get better. Like, I do want it to get better.
Well, you kind of heard where it's going to go, but we can hope.
I don't know.
We can
cross
always
our fingers
hope
that they pull it off.
that the leaks are wrong.
Well, the thing is, like, contrary to popular belief, like, I never go into something wanting it to be bad. Like, I go into it genuinely wanting to enjoy it. And this, like, I genuinely wanted to enjoy, because I like the character of Jean-Luc Picard. I like that character. Not so hot on Patrick Stewart these days, but I like Picard. I like Jean-Luc. I think they, like I said, like we've all been saying, there's a lot of optimism to that character. There's an awful lot of, like, earnestness behind the beliefs of what that universe was, that utopian. but it just, I don't know. It was like I said, for me, it was a 5 out of 10. Like, not offensively terrible and not anything.
It's not
good.
offensively terrible. It is missing one good staple of Picard, and that is Picard has a love for mystery. And what better than having a woman coming up to him and saying, "Hey, I have all this stuff," and then he just kind of he doesn't take it on himself like he would an actual mystery, like how we've seen in The Next Generation. Like he does the Dixon Hill stuff and the holograms, and when they're missing that day and it's a mystery and he's all excited about trying to figure out what's happening, that's a big part of Picard's character, like his sense of discovery and his sense of mystery. And here it is presented for him, and he doesn't really, it's all passive on his end of things. He's not very active.
Damn it. And I hope you were going to say this whole show is going to wind up being a hologram.
It could be.
In a lot of ways, it kind of feels like we're just missing Picard in general. Like, it feels like what we've
He
got is
doesn't
actually...
feel like Picard. No,
it feels
sorry.
like we've got Patrick Stewart in this, kind of playing Patrick Stewart according to Patrick Stewart's personality and beliefs rather than Picard. And it just
but it wasn't
seems
Picard's
odd.
personality.
The only time he felt kind of like Picard was that forced little speech during the interview.
Yeah. No, that was probably the closest thing, but it didn't feel as Picard is because it was just too direct. It was too on the nose. Picard's never been on the nose. He'll preface a speech with something from history and then go from there. But this one here was just like, nope, it's, you know what Dunkirk is? No, Starfleet's not Starfleet, blah, blah, blah. And this interview's over. And I'm thinking Picard would never be in a position where he would be on the defensive end of an interview. He wouldn't just let it even escalate to that
Well,
point.
they did a little bit of a job of setting up that the interviewee was not supposed to ask about it. So, okay, he's frustrated.
We know exactly that they're going to ask him.
Well, of course, but you're right, Script Doctor. The typical, in my at least opinion, from what I know of Picard, I would think he would go at it a different direction, and even if it did bother him personally, that's the last point he would lose his cool.
Yeah,
he would be like, well, actually, in history, it has been proven that this and that. He'd go on this long speech until he get to the point where he'd say, and of course, that's why I think that it was important for Starfleet to be involved, and well, they didn't, and that's where
a lot more philosophical.
Yeah,
isn't he?
Exactly. Yeah, he's not like
very much a philosophical person, referencing historical events and how.
And there's another thing about historical events, and this really, really bugged me. Where the hell is the comparison between evacuating the Romulans and Dunkirk?
Thank you.
Yeah, that was it, wasn't it?
It was out of fucking nowhere. It was just like a quote because the kids will know it.
No, it's because Dunkirk was a movie last year, and people.
That's what I just meant. Yeah, because kids will know it because of the movie. That's the only reason. That's the only reason I can see why. I'm like,
I haven't even seen the movie, to be honest, but I know the history, and the two situations
like Dunkirk
couldn't be further.
Yeah, it's not
apart.
like the Romulans were besieged by an enemy army, and it's not like the Romulans were our troops or anything.
Unless they declared a war on stars.
Romulans are the enemy army.
Well, if anything, it should be compared more to like a self-imposed Kobayashi Maru.
Yeah.
It was really old actually. Now you meant, yeah.
I have to say, like that's the worst comparison I've heard that I can remember that situation.
In fact, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, but again, that just goes to show that this isn't like Star Trek of old, which would explore a political topic from several angles and arrive at a humanist conclusion. This is preaching, and it's distorting facts and history for the purpose of preaching. And that's where it loses me.
It is. And unfortunately, shows are only as smart as the writers writing them. And from this example right here, it's quite sad that they have no knowledge of history. They don't understand how to properly formulate a concept or an analogy, or even just add effort to dialogue to make it sound familiar to the character that we've seen for the last 20 odd years in media.
There was
Great.
two
You were
things.
saying something.
Yeah.
There was two things that bothered me about that scene. One is the fact that he's in this kind of confrontational interview with the interviewer is portrayed as like some kind of conservative talk show host, almost like when he's talking about the Romulans, she's like, you mean our oldest enemy? And that's where I got that kind of vibe from Undiscovered Country, where again, it's like an old enemy who is now kind of forced to almost submit to you. Like they need your help and you don't really want to help them. but also the fact that he's given a TV interview in the first place. Like, I'm pretty sure they mentioned in TNG that like TV doesn't even exist anymore.
No one watched TV. It was like a thing in
Yeah.
the past. Was that? They also referenced that in Voyager as well. As far as
that was the last
it's
episode of
really
season 1.
contemporary looking, like how it's all set up as a TV, shoot where you got cameras floating around him and stuff, and you've got a talk show host giving his interview, and it's just so present day. It's so on the nose, and it just feels so alien to Star Trek.
Right, they
Dodge
wouldn't
say dude to her boyfriend at one point.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, that felt so like out of place too. Yeah,
Like, that's not even out of place for 20. That's out of place for today. That's like 1980s Ninja Turtles.
Well, I say dude, but all right, fine.
Oh, okay, well, I'm in Canada.
No, that's fine. No, don't worry about it.
I do in certain instances, but when I wouldn't expect it to be a common, quote.
Well, but it is out of place for like the
Yeah.
futuristic thing.
Well, just like the swearing, and that's why I asked Nick Myers about that, because that was like the only way I could think to get around all the other bullshit was to ask him,
But I think,
how he felt
I
about
love
that.
that question.
Oh, what?
No, I'm just saying, like, a good thing that Tom asked Nicholas Meyer in the interview, because he loved that question. Yeah,
It was like peeling an onion, man.
But I think it's real bad writing to open up with an interview like that and have him kind of lose his cool, because, well, yeah, it is bad writing. Like a better way to have approached that, I feel, would have been to have something. He wakes up and it's the next day, and we're introduced to him after an interview that's taken place, and we see bits of it, snippets of it here and there, and he's kind of pacing around it with respect to around that, rather than have him in like actual current present tense panning out. It's just too on the nose and too contrived for a show.
Yeah, it's literally just an opportunity for him to say, "These are the reasons why I quit Star Trek."
Have it come up some other way, like
There's nothing wrong with the idea. It was just their execution was lazy.
Yeah, we need to know it. Of course we do.
Well, they could have had Dodge ask him.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. This whole thing felt like you said, Mr. H. It was written by a 5-year-old. It's like there's no thought process put into how they could have simplified all this crap, like having her leave instead of just making the phone call from Picard's house.
It just hasn't. No one's taken second, third pass at the scripts. Like it genuinely feels like they've taken and accepted first drafts. There's no way that those scripts have been gone over again and actually been critiqued by the showrunner. I can't believe that those scripts have been.
I can, only because I can believe that they were terrible beforehand.
Well, I don't know anything about Alex Kurtzman. I've not watched the other things that he's been involved in.
Well, we know just within the
TV
first
shows
few episodes, they changed showrunners too.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Kurtzman was showrunner for like the first 4 or 5, and then Chabon takes over for the rest of the series. And then for season 2, then he's replaced already. So, yeah, that didn't last long.
It'll be interesting to see how it pans out, I think. Will be interesting.
It will. It'll be interesting to see how it proceeds from here on out, now that we have the leaks of what's going to happen. But again, as we keep on saying, it's all in the execution. So far, that has been a little bit lacking now, hasn't it?
Unfortunately, yeah.
It really has. And to your point, Mr. H, like I will say this because I read a lot of scripts in my life, and when you take a look at what's actually presented on television and on film, sadly, that technically more often than not is the best that they've seen at that time, which makes you just go.
It's just abysmal, like, because
it really
is like.
Like a blade in your chest that's being turned.
I can write better stuff than that. I can genuinely write better things than that. Like that is it's just like, I don't know, GCSE level English lit. Like people in the UK would know what I'm talking about. Like it's genuinely GCSE level English lit. Like it's just not. I can't imagine being paid that much money to write something that bad. Or that
it's just the
amateur, should
nature
I
of
say?
the
Sorry.
it's the nature of the industry. There are lots of great things out there that will never get into the hands of the right people, or the right people will just be averse to the subject matter because it doesn't hit what they want to hit. There are a lot more obstacles than just quality, and everyone in Hollywood talks about they want great characters, they want great scripts, but when you ask them what great is, it always comes down to their individual taste, and a lot of tastes don't line up, and so that's why they go to like marketing departments and analytics and everything to try and figure out what it is the massive population wants and try to follow
Well,
that
it's the
trend.
vocal minority, isn't it? Unfortunately.
Well, yeah, it's a very vocal minority that ends up dictating some things every once in a while. It comes in waves, but we've had periods of our entertainment that have been absolutely phenomenal, and it had nothing to do with whether or not someone could market this or whether or not it fit an agenda. It was just because all the right pieces were in place. And I can tell you, like, I wouldn't be surprised if every script for Picard went through multiple drafts, but they just start off as abysmal, and they managed to get it to this point because of the narrowing time frame that they had to turn it in.
Yeah.
And that's just the nature of these types of things, because there's not. It's really hard to figure out quality in writing when you're inside the bubble of Hollywood for so many years, because you read so much, you see so much of the same stuff done slightly different ways, that when something kind of, I guess from our perspective, appears bad, it almost feels refreshing and good and worth exploring. And it's just, more people need to get out of Hollywood. That's why that's half the reason why I don't live there. I go back and forth for basically a respite and a refresh, to try and make sure I don't always have my head up my own ass. Because when I get into LA, I have to have my head up my own ass. It's the only way I can survive. But like I come out here and I do my writing and I go back and I get my meetings. But then there's other things that happen. Like they're saying, oh, well, we need to readjust it for this market because this is kind of trending right now. And so you try to acquiesce. And then by the time you get all these notes and all these things, what you ended up having, but which may have been fun, great, and unique, that got you into all those doors, ends up becoming plain and derivative. And yet that's what goes into production. And then it gets into the cycle where it gets released and people don't like it. And it's just the nature of this industry for the moment. But
yeah, but then they all point to these massive outliers, and when they were a huge success, they're like, "Oh my god, how was that a success?" Yep. It's like, well, fucking wonder why. Like me and Andre have been talking about this for a while as well. Like I know you've referenced me in certain videos here and there. It was all about counter programming. You know, these things that are so different do so well because they are so fucking different. You know, like right now would be prime time for Conan. Let's get Conan on the go.
Hint.
I would love all that toxic masculinity. Send it my way. Like I'll be down for that. And that's counter programming. Most people would be interested in it. It's the same reason why Joker did so well, because it was, it had a message, but a different bloody message. It wasn't.
It fills a gap.
Exactly.
I have to say about that, everyone go check out our interview with Conan writer Jim Sub. That's pretty cool. So, and no one got notifications for it. So check that out. With that plug out of the way, sorry, carry on.
It's just, we just need counter programming. It's amazing how they bang on about things not doing very well. It's amazing how are they surprised that things bomb nowadays? How
well, they try to hide the fact that it bombs. That's the other part too.
They blame the audience. We've seen that.
You look at movies like you look at Terminator Dark Fate, for example, and you think they couldn't have ever thought when that was coming out that it was going to do well.
I know people that worked on that, so I had all the leaks and I had videos from the set, and they doubled down on that. They fully were happy with that, but the people working on the film hated it. Hence why you get contacted about these things.
Well, and that's how that actually happens.
And even when they went back for reshoots, they didn't reshoot anything. They just did action pickups, and they changed the hairstyle of Danny Ramos. Like they genuinely were happy with that film. The powers that be, anyway, they were genuinely happy with it. Like honestly, 100%.
It's a strong thing.
Like it's terrible. But everyone that worked on it outside of the powers that be hated it. They all hated it. And there was an accident on set on the final day of filming, which is hilarious. And I'm really surprised it didn't get out, even though I reported on it. But whatever.
Do share. Tell us.
Can you tell us?
Yeah.
I've probably still got photos of it. But basically, it was basically a member of the crew got in a big accident. They had to call paramedics out. So I got like photos of someone being stretchered away. quite bad, really. But I don't know the ins and outs of exactly what happened. But I know it was a big enough accident to call out paramedics. So it must have been relatively big.
Yeah,
But,
I mean, typically the case is if it gets released, the people at B are generally happy enough about it to do that. But yeah, like Dark Fate was just a big swing and a miss, like huge,
that was a donkey
unbelievable
ball swing.
Yeah, it's like they weren't even in the right field of the game, of the right game. They took a baseball bat to the football field and then tried to hit the
Right.
ball, and they
Well,
didn't even
it's like they took the lessons from Genesis and then forgot about them and made a whole bunch of new mistakes on top of it. It was just, you just try to put yourself into the mindset of it.
Well, it was the
Remember,
same
guys,
producer behind it.
It was the best movie since T2. Remember?
Yeah.
Oh, and also should be mentioned, speaking of Terminator Dark Fate, the one behind it was producer David Ellison, if memory serves me right, who's the CEO of Skydance. The Skydance CDO is also one of the key funders behind J.J. Abrams' Star Trek movies. So there's the connection. They're the ones trying to get Star Trek 4 off the ground now. But even Skydance is like, not so sure we want to invest in Star Trek 4 right now. They've lost enough money, even though he's a billionaire. So
I think and I'm sure
the only reason I would invest in Star Trek 4 is if I fucking hated having money. And I just want to lose it because
just do it for a tax break.
It is never going to work.
Oh yeah, they
go to
do
Vegas
that.
and get enough money.
Because like Chris Pine's not going to do it. Hemsworth's not going to do it. Probably you've not got enough left to make it a viable movie. Chekhov's dead. Like the only way you could you can't even salvage it.
But yeah,
the only way that happens is a big swing, and that's if Tarantino actually takes it on, and he's already pretty much said it's dead.
Yeah, so it's been dead for a long time.
Yeah.
That was probably never happening.
The Kelvin timeline just needs to die as a whole.
Well, it would have died with his, because the way he said it, he would have used the cast, but he would have adhered to the TOS, because he actually talking to JJ about that, and he's like, I don't understand it, and JJ's like, nobody understand it. It's stupid. Just do what you want to do.
No, the closest Tarantino will get to Star Trek is doing its own science fiction film, and if he does that, I would be very interested to see it. But
fuck yes.
But it wouldn't be Star Trek, yeah. But it would be new for Tarantino.
With MacFarlane or something. That would be brilliant.
With Seth MacFarlane?
Yeah, with Seth MacFarlane. I'm not saying that's happening. I'm just saying that would have been like a cool team up. Far cooler than him and J.J. Abrams. Far cooler than that.
Oh yeah, because at least Seth as a producer even would have just been like...
Oh, he's a multi-talent. He can do everything. And also, with him, they would have had the brains and the intelligence and the cleverness that is so absent from this. And you wouldn't have the screechy preaching at the expense of history.
Yeah. No, MacFarlane, his team, they could find the right writing group to do something worthy. I mean, they've already done it with the Orville. It's. I mean, I like it a lot. It's very Star Trek-y. Not as profound as Star Trek in my opinion yet, but I'm looking forward to the third season, and it's a great alternative, a much needed alternative.
Right. And we got a video that'll hopefully be up, I think, not too long after this. Hopefully, fingers crossed, that covers the leaks we just talked about earlier and this whole business with Seth MacFarlane and buying Star Trek, because I see some people talking about that in the chat. So, yeah.
Yeah, let's just say don't hold your breath.
Yeah. Anyway, so I think we did we want to cover anything else, Andre, or should we start hitting some super chats here, because we've been neglectful?
Well, we can start hitting some super chats. Just want to check.
And Critical Drinker is going to have to leave soon, so I don't know if we want to let him have his final thoughts quick before he does go.
Yeah.
Cool, guys. No, thanks very much for having me on the stream tonight.
Huge pleasure.
Thank you.
Pleasure's all ours.
In terms of my thoughts for Picard's, I'm just invested enough to keep watching to see where it goes. I don't get much of a Star Trek vibe from it. It's nice to see Patrick Stewart back in the role. It's just a shame he's not actually playing Picard. But Yeah, I'll give it a few more episodes and probably do a review on the first one, I would think. And get my thoughts into a bit more of a coherent order.
Yeah, looking greatly forward to it, as I'm sure we all are. And it was an absolute blast that you could join us. So thanks for that, and you're welcome anytime.
Cool. Thanks, guys. See you later.
See
Take
ya.
care.
Thanks. Great meeting you.
Dude.
All right. And now that we're slightly fewer here, let's get into some super chats because we've been on the receiving end of several of them, which we are very, very grateful for. And now it's time to go through them. So, to begin, let's see who was first. That would be Sister Harrow, who sent us 10 Australian dollars. Thank you so much. Who said, might be amongst the few, but didn't it have a Star Trek feel? I'll just read that one more time. Might be amongst the few, but it didn't have a Star Trek feel. Older Kirk had a sense of Kirk, but older Picard didn't do it for me. Felt different guy. I'm checking out probably. I think many are going to check out as it progresses, but we shall see. And then Sister Harrow sent another $2 saying Star Trek Picard had no sense of the franchise. Well, certainly had member berries. Sense, I'm not so sure about.
Yeah, there's a difference between member berries. I mean, to clarify, member berries just throw a bunch of stuff up on there like that looks or to have characters. Like the whole data business is member berries. I mean, yeah, some of it does tie into the story, but to be able to see that and just to have the little shot of the, the TOS, it's not really TOS, the Discovery Enterprise, I should say, and stuff like that. It's supposed to give you memory berries. They only show it to you long enough so you don't notice. Just all the little bits and pieces here and there, but nothing outside of a few. There is a few story points that do tie in. I will give them that if the leaks are true and they don't change anything now that the leaks are out there, let's say.
Well, like Picard's safety deposit box, like that's a room full of member berries right there. Like they had the Picard banner, they had the Stargazer, but it wasn't the one from the Enterprise. It was because that was gold. They had the Captain's yacht model and all that stuff. Like that's all there for memory purposes. It didn't really move the story forward.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you. You did it better. Said it better than I did. But yeah.
Nostalgia for nostalgia's sake. So
Yeah.
Moving on, Captain Hare sent us $5 saying, should have gone for a slice of life comedy. Every episode Picard wakes up with Q in bed next to him, sighs, Q grins, and then wacky adventures ensue.
I'd rather have that.
Yeah.
There's a short Trek idea right there.
Well, not only that, that's an entire animated series on its own. I think that's what Rob and I were saying from the start. It's like, you're missing the biggest opportunity. You're trying to make these two animated series, and you're trying to make a Picard. Why don't you make a Picard and Q animated series? Because then you don't have to worry about anybody being old. You don't have to worry about any, you can have them all, whatever time period you want to have it in and all that shit.
Yep.
That would be hilarious with like...
You get Avery Brooks in there to do a voice and have fun.
That would have been great. Like there's so much you could have done, and this is what we got. But yeah, Namcos sent us 10 British pounds saying, don't know if this was mentioned, just tuned in after seeing Picard, but I got the Jake Skywalker equals Picard and Dash equals Ray vibe, while Picard and Dash were sat talking about parents.
I don't think you're wrong, because don't be surprised if they did take a lot out of the Force Awakens playbook and beyond to build this.
And then Adam Wofford sent us $2 asking, Starfleet had 110 light years territory isolated? I didn't catch the size of it, but maybe that sounds like the size of a good Boöt's void. So I didn't catch the size of it, but I'm sure it's unscientific, as is everything in Kurtzman Trek.
I like science.
Yeah, me too. And then Blue Satoshi sent us $2 saying, if Mars was their 9/11, what was Wolf 359 to them?
Pearl Harbor?
Bay of Pigs?
Yeah, I was just about to say Bay of Pigs. Wouldn't surprise me.
But actually, that's kind of inverted because wasn't the Bay of Pigs? No, wait, I might be confusing my history. No, I'm just going to stop now.
Well, not to go off on a rant, but like I was saying earlier, I mean, you have a perfect situation where you have Picard. He could have said, we had a situation that was just like our most fundamental, oldest practice in our teachings of Starfleet, and that is the Kobayashi Maru. And the one thing that always is the factor that is the most hardest to overcome was the barrier, and we were the ones who put that barrier between us and the Romulans. So that's what I meant by self-imposed barrier. It's like,
Yep.
You could have referred back to the Kobayashi Maru, and it was like, we took the no-win scenario, had the win, but we failed ourselves. You could have set him up for that kind of a speech instead, instead of this random out of nowhere Picard speech, which normally doesn't happen until he's generally backed into a corner and he thinks there's nothing left. And then he'll get all passionate and pull out that speech. You know what I mean?
Oh, exactly. I mean, technically, he's kind of insinuating that there's a Federation neutral zone now. Like, there's some sort of division.
Oh, Mr. H wanted to say goodbye, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, it was a pleasure having you, as always. So, yeah, welcome next time, and thanks for joining. And bad timing, because then he missed
The one super chat that's probably aimed at him, I suppose.
Exactly, yeah. And not just him. The Treklosopher sent us $5 saying, glad to see Critical Drinker and Mr. H on Midnight's Edge. It's a YouTube mega show. Yeah, that's a cool thing on YouTube, isn't it? And especially like on not just our show, but like others in the same circuit. You never know who's going to show up.
Yeah, well, we kind of have been doing this Friday thing now regularly for a while. I mean, we had a few weeks off here with the holidays, and we got to catch up on Mandalorian. But yeah, so between then and then, you never know. Yeah, but we got Picard also to talk about. So
yeah,
maybe we'll do the last few. Maybe we'll do those last few episodes of Mandalorian to get caught up.
Yeah, let's do that just to give closure to everyone following that. So we'll definitely do that. But moving on with the super chats. Cor Moran sent us $2 Australian saying STP, wherein Patrick gets to play Saver and Logan.
Pretty much,
yeah. At least that was the intention, just not so well executed. And then Jamin Shanti sent us $1.99 saying thank you for the opinions. You're welcome. And C-Set sent us £5 saying the new Space Force logo is more faithful to Star Trek than Picard, LOL. I actually haven't seen the new Space Force logo, but I wouldn't be surprised if it is. I'm sure that the people behind that are far bigger fans of Star Trek than are the people currently making it.
Trust me, it's the best Space Force in the world.
Given that it's the only one,
that doesn't matter. It's still the best.
Yeah, it's technically correct. I will say, though, absolutely need a Space Force. It's long overdue. So, yeah, kudos for that.
Do you think the aliens really give a shit about us?
They look at us. I feel sorry for them.
They look at us and they're like,
how many M-class parent planets do you think there are?
Well,
I
not
think
just
we've only
that.
found one.
Well, not just that. I mean, there's several opportunities for other planets like ours to exist where there has spawned life. But if there's enough intelligent life out there to actually find us, all they're going to look at us and go, all they do is stare at those square things in their hand all day and jerk off and eat fucked up things. So that's about it.
I'm not going to go into that discussion right now.
Okay. No, but it's really, I mean, really, all we do is use the internet for porn. And I got a kid who's, graduated finally, but it's like, if I was a kid and I had Google in my hand at every step of the way, I'd be the smartest kid on earth right now. And these kids just don't even understand the power they have in their own hands. It's like,
I always
use it for porn and YouTube.
I always say, if we're living in the information age, we're not any more well informed.
No. The only good thing,
as always, we just have more technology that we can use to become more sloppy and lazy and stupider. I remember, like, this sketch artist, like this Danish, I think it was. Yeah, remember, like Gary Larson, who did like this one-page comics. There was one Danish one which was pretty amazing, where you basically had like the caption: if Magellan lived today, like the explorer, then you have like this fat slob sitting in his dirty clothes in front of the computer. That's what he would be today, the explorer, just sitting and absorbing things online.
Yeah, that's the biggest flaw with our information age is we have so much access to the information, we have no desire to retain it and learn anything from it.
Yeah. And case in point, like now it's difficult to go back to the moon because we can no longer build the Saturn V rockets. We have to like redo everything to.
Well, yeah, my teacher was telling me that in high school. Like, we just don't build that technology anymore.
Yeah. So we're further behind now than we were in the 60s when people actually were engineers and could do amazing feats. And now we have to rediscover it. So thank God for Tesla. No, so not Tesla per se, but for Elon Musk and SpaceX.
We can't get to the moon, but we can buy a sex doll that's almost lifelike, guys. We're getting there.
It's a very lateral move.
Right? Yeah.
I'm not sure lateral is that direction. But,
No, I was going to say more horizontal, but
But yeah, anyway, moving on. Yes, Canadian Highlander sent us $2 saying 5 minutes in, and I said to my one more time, 5 minutes in, I said to my wife, "What the fuck am I watching?"
ugh.
Yeah. And Woke Troll sent us $5 hazard pay. Thank you so much. And 52 Movies a Year sent us $1.99 saying, "Can I clone $100 from the lint in my empty wallet?" Well, when we have the technology for it, then maybe you can borrow it from Alex Kurtzman or something and use his cloning technology. But anyway, we very much so appreciate you getting $1.99 out of that lint and giving it to us. So thank you so much. And Michael Elliott sent us $2 saying Jean Lounge Picard. Von Doofus sent us $1.99 saying, "Do we get a 25% different Mirrored Universe episodes?" I don't think so, not this time around.
No, we just get clones.
Yeah, exactly. There's never been a next generation Mirrored Universe episodes, and they're continuing that tradition. So we'll just have to stick by the Discovery Mirrored Universe with hammed up characters and everything. And then B. Winst sent us $5 saying, "Tearing people is a ratings getter because the masses want to see people fail so they feel better about themselves." Who's that aimed for? But anyway, thanks for the super chats. And then Omega Supreme with Cheese sent us another $5 saying, "They grew up in or just pre-internet where their heroes have been destroyed and fed a diet of how evil their culture is. So they're nihilists." I take it he's talking of the generation we spoke about that grew up basically without heroes because everyone had to be torn down. And then Daryl Brewer sent us $5 also. "What's the bet that Q makes an appearance at some point?" Oh, 100%. As we
Yeah, that was
covered.
before we read those leaks. Yeah.
Spoiler alert, I guess. Actually, no, that's a fairly recent one because we're reaching the end now.
Oh.
And then Adam Wofford sent us another $5 saying, "What about the rumors that if Star Trek fails, Star Trek moved to NBC, now knowing Seth MacFarlane had also moved to NBC?" Now that's rumors taking on a life of their own. Because there's no automatic thing that it's going to move to NBC. What the rumor is that they might be interested in selling to Universal, with Seth MacFarlane being the one pushing for it, since he's at Universal right now. However, this is a rumor, and not all rumors were created equal. And this is one of those that aren't equal to those that actually panned out. At this time, there is actually nothing to support this. We're not going to jump over this rumor because there's probably nothing to it. that the entire Star Trek franchise can be sold, that is on the table.
The problem you run into is a worse situation almost than Star Wars with George Lucas and sparring off with Bob Iger on the price. CBS is never going to part with it for a price that's going to be worth it for anybody to take it on.
Yeah, here's the thing, because the brand has been so devalued that for a potential buyer, it's worth less than what CBS would spend for it. So I don't think Star Trek is going anywhere either.
Now, before anybody... Sorry, go ahead, Script Doctor.
I was just going to say it's more financially beneficial to Viacom CBS to just sort of reinvest in Star Trek later on than try and sell it. It's just it's too good of a property to hold on to. Even if we have a gap for 10 years, they'll say in that 10 years we can figure it out and then relaunch it and still make money back. So
exactly. Because in the meantime, they have like 30-40 million a year in merchandising revenue.
Because before anybody says we're saying that Picard's a failure, I don't think it is. I think it did very well for it. We haven't heard any numbers. We're never going to see any fucking numbers. But going by the after show special with what's his face who played Wesley Crusher,
Will Wheaton.
Will Wheaton. Last I looked, it was like over 2 million views. Compared to the stuff for Discovery, which outside of like ours and Nerdrotic and Doomcock's videos, the official CBS stuff never really got a lot of views.
Yeah, no, this one is going to be a hit, at least right now. We'll see how it progresses. But
it's a hit enough that they're going to justify extending it to the second season, where they've already promised Whoopi Goldberg a spot. And yeah,
probably a third as well. Because again, before anyone pulls that against us, we've never said it was going to be cancelled.
We never said the Discovery was going to be cancelled.
No, we never said that either. Although people like to claim that we did. My favorite is when people claim that we said that Star Trek Beyond would never be released.
I know
we weren't even talking about Star Trek then.
Yeah, I think your first video on Star Trek, wasn't it the review for Beyond?
Yeah, how much I loved it.
Yeah, I liked it all right. I thought it was kind of harkening back to the first 09 Star Trek and stuff like that. And I said it even felt a little bit more Trekky than the rest.
Definitely,
I like the 09 movie and Beyond, and I make no apologies for it.
Could have done without the motorcycle scene, but
I could live with that.
I still don't buy them listening to Beastie Boys. I don't.
It's classical music.
I know. That would be like some punk kid rolling up now and having Beethoven blasting out of his subwoofers going, "Killer tunes, bro!" It's like, yeah.
I did that in high school as a joke, though. But
yeah, it's a joke.
Not seriously.
Anyway, moving on. R-Far sent us $3.49 New Zealand dollars saying, "Remember when Star Trek was a smart show?" Yeah, yes. I remember. I remember 15 years ago. And then Master Clockwork sent us $5 saying, "That seems to be JJ's approach to everything. None of it makes sense. Do what the fuck ever, just make it look cool." I gotta say though, I don't mind the look. I don't mind it looking cool. I like the look, but it doesn't help when there's no substance behind it.
At least you can see most things, unlike Discovery.
Yeah, Discovery is freaking ugly. Picard, I like the look of. It was just something not quite working, and that was in the narrative, not the look. And then final one, Wendo sent us $1.99 saying, "Picard personality has changed somewhat due to PTSD." Yeah, never underestimate a good bout of PTSD.
Well, that's fine.
To have it over data because he's really obsessing over his friend who died like 20 years earlier.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the thing is it's almost to the point where, I mean, I get it. Certain things in your life can affect you, but you're still you. It just it feels like Patrick Stewart's just walking into a scene, sitting down, doing his lines, and then going on about his business. It doesn't feel like he's really giving it his all. Now, granted, hopefully, maybe later on down the road, he will. I mean, this is just setting things up. I have no idea how good it could be. I don't want anybody to saying that I'm prejudging the entire show off of one episode, though.
Yeah, it could have just been the direction for that thing. They just did not know how to get that performance out of Patrick.
And it's like, getting into an old pair of pants. You know, he's kind of working his way in, maybe. That's what I'm saying. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt that it's going to take him a few minutes to get into it. Because, I mean, I was one of those out there saying he should have got nominated, if not won, an Oscar for his performance in fucking Logan.
Logan, yeah.
He was robbed.
Yeah. He was indeed. He really should have gotten nominated and won for that, because that was amazing. Of course, here, though, this is deliberate. This is not that he needs to get back into it or something. He does this deliberate. I mean, did you see his interviews and everything? How he rambles about Brexit and Trump. He even said it here, that this is a Picard that spent the past 10 years not living but waiting to die. And that's what he's like trying to get through his acting. I'm sure that he's gonna return a little bit more to the Picard that we used to know over the course of the series. Even remember, they said that even in like the first scene when they prep him for the interview. Like, remember, give them the Picard that they used to know. And of course, we're not going to get that in the first episodes, but maybe as he goes into the spacefaring adventures and everything, it's going to be like more like the traditional Picard.
Dune buggies!
Closer to it. Yeah, but here's like the thing, though, that he's a horrible steward of the character, because Patrick Stewart is a great actor.
That's where Dune buggies comes from.
Yeah, he's not a great writer, because like in the movies, that was Dune buggies, and that episode he had control over. What was that? That was the episode that was basically like the Die Hard remake, where he takes
the variant.
To kick the hijackers out of the Enterprise all on his own.
So are you saying that Patrick Stewart has had a deep-seated obsession with wanting to be an action star that he never got to live out?
Well, I think so. I mean, there's only so much you can go sprawling around in those tights and Shakespearean plays before wanting to do some more macho stuff, I should imagine.
Yeah, and I suppose then he signs up for X-Men and he's like, fuck, I'm in a seat the whole time.
Wonder why I got to kick some ass.
Why didn't anybody tell me? I figured superhero movie I was going to get a cape and kick some ass.
So yeah, but anyway, it'll be interesting to see how the series progresses from here. I have to say, I'm hoping for the best, because we read the leaks, but those are just like stuff that we read. Really, it's all in the execution. The execution of the first episode wasn't all that, but we've seen series before, haven't we, where the execution in the first episodes weren't all that, but then it picked up steam. And I think of Spartacus more than anything else. But that's just me, I guess. So I'm hoping and so, because I don't want to dislike this. I want to like it. I want this to be good. And just because it's under the alternate license, when you move forward, that doesn't mean anything. You can still make great Star Trek within those restrictions. Just look at the Orville. That's great Star Trek, and it has nothing of Star Trek. It just kind of reminds of it.
Yeah, it's all about execution. Let's just hope it's not the execution of Jean-Luc Picard.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, well, we're caught up on the Super Chats.
We are caught up on Super Chats. So, guys, any final words before we round out?
I just hope this gets better. I don't think it will, knowing the leaks. But yeah, even Sadie agrees with me. I'm probably pretty hoping for too much. I with Kurtzman involved, with all this crap behind the scenes, I don't see it. And with these leaks, that's the thing. And we got this video coming up, so I do suggest everybody check that out too for a little bit more in depth on that. So yeah, I think a lot of my feelings are that there's too much chaos behind the scenes for anything to go right now.
Yeah, pretty much.
Script doctor?
Well, yeah, I really hope that the show does get better when, obviously, I guess episode 4 is when Shaban was the showrunner for it.
4, 5 thereabouts. I don't know
4 or
exactly
5, yeah.
which episodes.
We're just going by roughly an idea of the shooting schedule, and we know they had shot 2 episodes, or it was 2 or 3 episodes, Rob, when we went out to Vegas. They said they had shot already.
I think it was 3.
Okay, so I'm assuming that Riker then is in one of the next 2 episodes because I think he also directs the next one too.
Yeah, I'm hoping it gets better. I'm hoping they actually properly give us plot threads that work, because the only thing they kind of had by the end of this episode is the revelation that there's a twin on for Picard to learn about. So now it's the next episode is about, okay, he's got to find this twin, but I'm still trying to figure out like the why. Why does he feel the need that he has to find this twin now?
Yeah.
Like the fact that she's in danger, okay, but like we don't necessarily know that the other one's going to be in danger. We didn't even address the suicide cap that the Romulan had, that he spat on her, because some people say it's blood, but I watched that thing a couple of times. It's like a suicide thing. Like they spat it on her. It got onto the phaser. The phaser blew up and then incinerated her as she was dissolving from the acid.
You know where they ripped that off from? 2 places where that happened. One was in Dune, and the other is in Skyfall. Javier Bardem's character, like how he was all messed up and everything. That was the cyanide pill or cyanide
that
capsule
failed, and it eroded away his skull. Yeah.
Whereas also like in Dune, then you had the captive Leto Atreides that used like this thing also hidden in his tooth to blow the gas to kill Baron Harkonnen. And it's, of course, killed him in the process, too. That's what this was. It wasn't their blood. It was something he spat out.
Yep. Just happened to be green, because that Romulan was getting eaten by the acid as well. So
yes, he was. He was. So anyone thinking that? It wasn't blood.
Yeah. But I am hoping it gets better, hopefully towards I really want it to have like a solid, this season, to have a solid conclusion of a story and then leave something open for the next one if they are going to do a second season, because I don't want a fractured show where that first season you only get halfway through the story and then you have to watch the second one for it to be resolved. That's not good storytelling, in my opinion. I really want something where you could watch that season on its own and be satisfied with it and then go to the next one for a new adventure. I don't think we're going to get that, but I'm crossing my fingers that maybe they might have something closer to that so that it will be enjoyable for everyone. I wanted to like this show, but
well, and we heard some rumors, and I do have to stress rumors, that there was a lot of reshoots at the end, and there's a possible multiple ending scenario they could go with depending on how the show rolls.
If they air it like Clue, like they did in the 80s, I'll be very upset.
No. From what I'm hearing, that was just a rumor. Like if the show was to go completely down south and crash and burn, I bet they would go with a Picard dies ending. Yeah. Now, if the show's a hit, like it looks like it's going to be, regardless of what we think about it or anything like that, because the normies are going to check in, then they'll have the ending where Picard lives and sets it up for the second season, like you're talking about, Script Doctor. So I think we got enough out of the leaks to get that this is going to be a mostly self-contained story, because I've also been hearing rumors about who's going to possibly be the antagonist in second season already and some other shit, and we've already got like Patrick Stewart asking Whoopi Goldberg if he's going to be on the show on The View, and don't think that he did that to her right on the spot on the show. They discussed it ahead of time. I guarantee it. It was already preset, and it was preset in stone.
Yeah, but
they got that photo up pretty fast.
Yeah, good TV moment. We'll have to give them that. I just saw some guys in the comments since I mentioned Dune asking wasn't Patrick Stewart in the original Dune?
Yes,
he was. And the one who will be taking over his role in the new movie is Josh Brolin, is playing the role previously played by Patrick Stewart. Oh my God, the casting for Dune, Jesus, so good. So good. I don't think I've ever seen a movie cast so amazingly well as that one.
Well, and you got a video coming up because there's some people who've seen some footage. And speaking of videos coming up, and we got to get Rob's final thoughts on this too yet. Do stay tuned. We're gonna try to get that video up here tonight yet. Hopefully, there is not going to be an After Dark tonight. We'll probably do something this weekend, so stay tuned for that. But do make sure you jump over there and subscribe to Midnight's Edge After Dark. So for more stuff like this. Yeah, she wants to go outside. She's getting mad.
Tom, just take the doggy outside, and we got it from here. Thanks for joining. Rob, any final words?
Dune buggies.
Dune buggies. Yeah, those are good final words.
Dune buggies.
Tom, any final words before you let the dog out? Or
Well, she's settled down now, so yeah.
Oh.
I think somebody's here. So anyway,
all right.
but no, yeah, I think I gave my kind of feelings on it, and we'll definitely have follow up to this and so on. So yeah, stay tuned for that video though, and much more coming from us.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, I want to say thanks to everyone in the panel. Thanks to the Critical Drinker who popped in. That was an awesome surprise. Thanks to Mr. H Reviews for joining us. Thanks to you, Script Doctor. Always a pleasure to have you as well. You're always welcome. And thanks to the regular guys, Rob and Tom. Always pleasure to have you as well, especially you, Rob, coming through your cold and everything. And a huge special thanks to every single one of you guys in the chat. We do try to pay attention to the comments. It's always easy, and we pick some up and answer when we can. And thanks for all the super chats. And thanks for keeping watching and basically allowing us to do what we do. And we couldn't do this without you. And we really need your support more than ever, because YouTube is basically just making changes after changes, and now even people who have set all notifications still don't get notifications sometimes. So do check that you're still subscribed, and check in from time to time if we suddenly go a long time without you getting notifications. And with that, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. And guys, everyone, thank you so much. Have a great one.
Mm-hmm.